All right, YouTube, how are we doing? YouTube looking good? Okay. And good afternoon, folks, and welcome to another edition of Smudcast. This is number 191, and we're looking at part 2 of Jesse Gender's How Good Celebrities Turn Transphobic. And the reason why we're finishing it off is because we still don't know the argument. So if she mentions it in the first minute and it's a waste of time to continue, we'll stop. But she's got 20 minutes. And we still haven't found the actual argument or point she's trying to make yet. I did appreciate that she defined a term in a very, not a direct way, but fine. It was detailed enough for me. And it wasn't the greatest explanation, but it was sufficient for what she's saying. So I do appreciate that. And as you can see, it's only Wisp and myself today because as much as I love having a full Smudcast panel and jokes and tangents, it does take a lot of time. So hopefully...
Spending 5 Smudcasts on this is probably not worth it.
I agree. Plus, it's nice to have an expert because whenever we talk about Star Trek or Star Wars, I bring in Shiny. He's always happy to help. If we have someone on the topic who knows this stuff, who's lived through it, it's even more helpful. So I like to give you more opportunity to talk. That way I can shut up and listen and learn as well. So
thank you for the opportunity and having me on again. And one special thing I want to say, I got yesterday, completely blew me away. Someone on the Discord made fan art for me, and it's absolutely wonderfully cute.
Oh, I think we all loved you. We all really liked your content and your intelligence. It was really nice. Not to say not to say the other guys aren't smart and funny. It was just you're giving a much more detailed and personal take.
It's just a new voice. It's a lot of autistic tangents, and you'll grow tired of me. Don't worry.
Well, I'm still around, so they haven't grown tired of me yet. But you never know; they probably have.
Yeah. And I just, if you haven't seen it, I posted the fan art in the DM with you on Discord again, and I just noticed that little drawing, it's making a peace sign with one hand. I didn't see that before. It's really cute. Thank you.
Do you know who did that?
Who made it? It's on the. I think it reads Botan.
Botan. Oh, we love Botan. Botan does all our crazy, cute little drawings.
Okay.
She's great.
Much thanks. I've never got fan art before.
All right.
So I hope I don't disappoint you.
Okay, well, let's get going. This is going to be 20 minutes left, so hopefully this will take about an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on how much I interrupt Wisp. So
how much I interrupt the video. Before we get into it, a little reminder from what I saw, or we saw all together, I think, maybe. Mm-hmm. Jessie already debunked her own point that where she complained about Captain Kirk being flustered by being called cisgender all the time, by admitting just before this timestamp that we're starting now that it's of course when he only experiences the term in an accusatory fashion, then he might not take it well. So what is the problem?
Right. Okay. So let's see, because we've gone over the definition. They've used it. They've shown it on the actual tweets that he wrote, the multiple tweets. She already read those out. Mm-hmm. So we want to find out what's her point on how Shatner is, or other celebrities are going to be transphobic.
Mm-hmm. Context by countered the term. And I mean, to make this clearer, let's use another example that Mr. Shatner himself brings up. That seems to be the predominant way the term cis, is used on social media, along with words like white and old, and it's not just about men. I still find it offensive. Shatner compares the word cis with the use of the words white and old, as they are often used derogatorily at him. That makes sense that he would equate those words. I mean, race is also a big issue that has been incredibly polarized in online discourse, and in real life, especially in the United States. And if you don't believe that, I really don't know what rock you've been living under for the last, 300 years. Or even just the last, 2 months. When someone uses the term white on social media, it's usually in these heated contexts to describe white people as, problematic or bad because, white people have kind of done some messed up crap to other races right here in America.
Okay, geez. Where do I start? I've been called all sorts of things on social media. People discovered my age, therefore I'm old, and therefore bad for some reason. I still don't understand the race thing, but as Jesse pointed out, oh yeah, white people did bad stuff. It's like every culture and country did bad stuff to every other kind of group.
We did a lot of it here in Europe. We all kind of bonked each other on the head. The Native Americans, a lot of them bonked each other on the head. Some seemed quite, you could say, fascist in their ways. The same goes for certain African tribes in Africa. And, well, if you want to look into really inhumane atrocities in Asia, the Chinese are very good, have been very good at inventing torture methods that the people who wrote the Hexenhammer, the actual book about that documents the judicial cases of the witch trials here in Europe, it makes that pale in comparison at times, and that's a feat to make that book blush, and yeah. It's they are right now they just seem to be obsessed with the white people, and they redefine the races all the time as who is part of the white people. They recently defined some board in the US of this social justice stuff. They redefined the Slavs, the palest people imaginable. So pale that some make undead jokes about them, as people of color, because they had a history of struggle when they came to the US, and because they're not native English speakers and so on, and so they define race not by skin color. That's what they did before, and it's what they also do, but by what is your people's personal history. Have you struggled? And they, of course, ignore this with the people they don't like. And there's I've seen this term somewhere used, and I kind of like it. It's Schrödinger's racism or Schrödinger's race. You are the race that the social justice activist currently needs you to be in order to make whatever the social justice warrior is saying work. Be it you're now, so you have fair skin, so you are white, so you are oppressive, but now I will redefine you as something else, and so you are not white. Same as they now redefined Asians, so of China and Japan, as now white people because they're meritocratic. And it's complete nonsense right now. The term race, it means nothing at the same time as it means everything. And then you have other issues where in every country in Europe they're bringing up this propaganda that you don't have a culture, because people in their own countries, in their own ethnicities, in their own cultures, for them, everything is normal. Where you live, where you've grown up, everything is normal, because that's what you learn to know. And
message coming in.
So you only notice when things are different, like when you move out, when you move somewhere else, when you go on vacation in a different country or just another part of your own country. Then you notice how much you are influenced by where you grew up. And their logic is, or rather the trick is, that they use this feeling of normalcy as an attack vector to tell you that you have no culture, because you don't notice what your culture is unless it comes into contact with another. And they say, oh, your culture is, everyone else has culture, and your culture just took stuff from other cultures, and that's the only reason it exists. And they tell this in every country in Europe to the people. Sometimes with the help even of state TV or state radio, and it's quite disgusting. So they tell the Swedes that they don't have a culture, that it's just an appropriation of other people's culture. They tell the same thing to the Germans and the Finns even. What I saw with the Finns is the most atrocious of all so far. They had government-sponsored TV spots with your average overweight, blue-haired feminist and a black man, immigrant, refugee, whatever, telling the Finnish people that they, since they look white, they profited from slavery in Africa and colonization, and that black people built everything in Finland. I'm not joking. I'm not kidding. This is state-sponsored TV, and it's absolute nonsense. Especially if you look at the history of the Finnish people. They came into that area, I think, about 1,000 years ago, and were enslaved repeatedly by the Swedes, then by the Russians, then by the Swedes, and by the Russians, and used as cannon fodder against the other. And whilst the Ottoman Empire took their children as exotic sex slaves. So tell me, how have the Finns, who have a strong Asian streak in their gene pool, because they originally come from the area around of Siberia, if I remember correctly, how have they profited from white supremacy and colonization and all of that nonsense in Africa? That it makes no sense. If anything, the Finns are an oppressed people, historically speaking. And this whole race stuff doesn't make sense. So the Finns, who are in large part Asian, by ethnicity, if you will, or however, which word you use, because every other month another word is the more correct one. It's just I'm losing track of it. So how are they? If by that definition, how are they white people? And here's the important bit: the Nazis had a magical race. They didn't think in white. The Nazis thought in Aryan. They had this idea of the Aryan race, a magical people that came down the mountain somewhere in India, moved over here, and there's some truth to that. That there was a population movement, but it's not some magical people of giants. And so the whole Nazi idea of the Aryan race is magical. It's esoteric, and they didn't see the Slavs as Aryans. They didn't see other people as Aryans. They didn't see the Southern Europeans as Aryans. However, although they're all relatively fair-skinned, depending on where they are, but the socialists now, the not brown but the red socialists.
Message coming.
So I say it that way so that people realize they are both socialists. People forget that the Nazis are socialists, so that we do not remember that socialism did a lot of atrocious stuff. So we always just think about Nazis bad. No, it's all socialists. All socialists have done atrocities in history. I do not know of an exception where it has worked out well or led to something good that also didn't depend on capitalism in some way. But that's too much of a tangent now.
Okay.
The thing is, the racism of the red socialists that we see now, the social justice warriors as they're called currently, it's a magical race theory. It's magical. It's esoteric. It has nothing to do with reality, and it keeps changing so that it just fits what they currently want and who they currently want to target. So maybe at some point they will too decide that, oh well, you know what, the Greeks aren't white. Okay, and then maybe they decide that, oh, the Swedes aren't white suddenly, which were very much in high regard by the Nazis, and I don't know. It just randomly changes.
Well, once they started going into hexadecimal values for skin tone, that's when you know it's like, okay, I think we're beyond the point of having a normal conversation with someone.
Yeah,
they're using 6 digits to explain that you're not in a certain spectrum of.
Yeah, and that's still the skin tone variant. but they also use the political and the heritage variant.
Yeah.
And the cultural variant, and that's all are different ways to look at race by them, and they do them all at the same time, even though they contradict each other. Makes no sense. And the skin tone thing has already been done in the present day, in the present years, in the black community, as they say, where the darker skinned blacks look at the lighter skinned blacks, the more brownish and lighter brown tones, as those are closer to white people, so they are oppressing us, the
really?
darker black people.
Oh,
it's absolutely mad. It's absolute insanity.
Okay.
It is when we say this is actually just black supremacy, it's about black skin tone supremacy in the end. The darker you are, the better person you are. It's absolutely insane.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Here's Spielman on the Super Chat. Thank you. What about Rwanda and so on? I think you're referring to the Civil War in the 90s with Rwanda? I'm not sure exactly what that refers to, though.
I'm not fit on that.
Yeah, I don't know either. I just know that was an issue. Like, you couldn't travel there for whatever reason, the political turmoil and all the things that happened for that 1 year or so. I was, just going through high school at the time, so I have no idea.
Yeah.
But
What I can say about Africa is that lots of these countries have adopted socialist ideas, have socialist parties, and also that they're also highly racist. They are very anti-Semitic at the same time. So these things go together very, very well. Maybe it is just the we need a common enemy thing that's just being exploited. But in Africa, you have the ANC, that is a pan-national, international within Africa party that operates across various nations to coordinate the socialist parties there, and that's also where you get a lot of racism. And Africa is a very fine example that every country there that goes socialist goes really poor and really shit and really violent and really destitute. And there are a few exceptions, and I always keep forgetting the names because I don't look at Africa enough, that refuse to go socialist, and they're doing pretty well. They're not awesome, super awesome, but they are comparatively doing pretty well.
Okay, here's Joe Crazy. Thank you. These types seem to forget that fighting isn't exactly clean or fair. People have fought for territory, resources, philosophy, and politics. There's lots of ways to skin a cat and reasons why. Humanity has done it several times over. So, yeah, nothing new.
And my experience with socialists is that resources. There are a lot of these Schrödinger issues with them, like. Resources are scarce and limited when they are talking from an environmentalist movement point. But when it's about implementing socialism, or when it's about we need to give to these people and those people free stuff, then resources are never limited. And they don't understand money, which is why they think that is an unlimited resource. Because they don't understand the value of money, how the value works with the amount of money at the same time. They don't understand inflation.
Well, these days, understanding inflation is kind of difficult since there's a very lack of interest rate, and we don't know how much money supply the banks are getting and how they can keep their floats going and how they can keep, well, if they do give out loans, how big are they? I remember having a conversation with my dad about buying a mortgage in the 70s compared to now. And, like if we were talking about bonds or stocks the other day, like I'm talking about dividend yields of like 12%. And like back in the day, if you had a dividend yield less than 6, you were doing it wrong. It's like, that's our maximum in conservative estimates. So like it's 5%, time to sell. Like that's like too much. Like really? Wow. So interest rates.
Oh, wow.
The dividend yields, all sorts of factors, buying a house, why mortgages are so low in terms of interest, but the price of homes are so high, why people are moving out of big cities nowadays. It's all related. And it's just funny to see these stories that you hear about from 40 years ago that is just the opposite turn of events as to why.
The only thing I can say to that is that the money system has been deliberately broken some time ago.
Oh, yeah.
And not by socialists, but just by people who wanted to exploit the system, the people, and therefore they just break the system and hope that people don't notice for long enough. And we are right now in a time, I believe, where a growing number of people are realizing in which way it is broken, and that will lead to a lot of turmoil.
Yeah, that's a completely other conversation, but I'm glad we are aware of these things, and maybe we might get into economics later, but that's a little different.
Everything is connected.
Yeah, okay.
Oh my God, the universe.
All right, let's get back to William Shatner.
Yes.
The term feels loaded. But really, in many contexts, the term white is just a description. I mean, I'm white. I'm definitely white. I'm like literally the whitest person ever. Dear Lord, don't ever ask me to dance. Just don't. It's a bad idea. But anyways, the term white is just a descriptive word. The same as...
These people complain about racist jokes all the time, and that things are derogatory. Even black people are not allowed to make self-derogatory jokes, which usually are fine. They're funny. This would be a funny joke otherwise, but I believe in this context, I have to point out that you just made a self-derogatory racist joke.
And even though she was claiming it was neutral, it's like, yeah, you're right. To you, it's neutral because you're saying it's neutral, and that's fine. But on Twitter, we know it's not neutral. They're clearly using these terms to get a response.
The weirdest thing, because I've never in all my life I've never seen this before. It's just seen this recently. The token black friend from London that I have, one of many. He hates these woke people, and he keeps linking me stuff that's going on on Black Twitter, and something I never knew was that they're now making or have been for a time. They're making jokes that white people always eat tuna, and
really?
I don't know where or what or how that came to be a thing, but there's apparently some parts of the probably Black Americans for the most part have a racist stereotype about white people that we eat lots of tuna all the time, and I'm not familiar with that.
The only thing I could point to is the Jewish people. They love to have tuna as opposed to ham or other kinds of meat. That's kind
is this another thing where they mix up white people with Jews?
Possibly, yeah.
Because I can tell you, the Nazis certainly didn't see the Jews as white.
Yeah. But yeah, there's lots of tuna melts and various other kinds of sandwiches that or meals that involve tuna or fish or what have you, because they don't eat. The more Orthodox Jews do not eat ham. So that's been an ongoing thing. I just realized that when I was like around 10 or 11. I was like, what's this tuna in your lunch all the time? What's going on? It's like, oh, I'm Jewish.
I have no idea, but it's with technically these small racist jokes. I mean, people don't really, or let's say mature people don't really care about it. They laugh about it, and then it's banter. It's a form of banter. It's how you connect with others. You laugh a bit about yourself. You make a joke about the other guy, or you make a joke about yourself, and that's how people come together.
Yeah. Always good to laugh at crazy, silly things, but that's part of life.
We sometimes make tranny jokes, so, well, I can't tell you one right now. It's just mostly situational. But
Are we going to get there? Because we're probably going to get there eventually.
This is kind of the topic.
Yeah.
And but the thing with that is, too, you can't do that around SJWs. They will instantly call you transphobic.
Yeah.
This is the hypocrisy I want to point out here with this.
They are ready to attack you if ever anything smells differently to them. It's like, what are you talking about? We can't make a joke about being white or black Really? Is that a problem?
Yeah, or Asian or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I Japanese have some really, really fun jokes sometimes, and they love puns. And there's some types of puns I really like, and some I just cringe. And it's just, oh God, please no.
Message coming in.
All right, here's an off-topic super chat. Smut, thoughts on Mass Effect Legendary Edition? Hope you like lens flare. Yeah, regarding the lens flare, they just updated the lens flare. The lens flare was always there, but because of the new graphical updates, they just pumped up the reflection levels and luminosity of the actual lens flares. So if you look at the scene with Thane, when you acquire Thane in Mass Effect 2, there is lens flare. It's just nowhere near as disgusting as the Legendary Edition. So
I just saw those screenshots of, hey, we made this better version of Mass Effect, and
you're blinding me.
I can't, who can play that? This is an attack on this is a physical attack.
Yeah. The thing is, the lens flare in the original Mass Effect 2, you knew it was there, but it wasn't blinding you. It wasn't like
Yeah. That was more an artistic thing. That's there. That's kind of the style, all right, but it's not J.J. Abrams.
No.
And this is J.J. Abrams on ecstasy.
And the thing with the comparison of Eden Prime, when they see the giant squid monster in the background, you're like, oh yeah, that's kind of scary. Now it's
the lens flare is overshadowing it.
The sun is so bright. I swear it's the daytime, and it's like this nice little. You can't see any lightning coming from the giant squid monster. It's just this giant object. You're like, what is that?
It could be a building. I don't know.
So yeah, funny, weird stuff. I might do a video later tonight about some changes and things. There's all these silly things. They were changing camera angles from Miranda's ass to not Miranda's ass or whatever.
What?
I might talk about it. It really depends.
There's so little sexiness in that game.
I know.
My God. And BioWare BioWare when it was good. They always and before when it was Black Isle, and it always had these really good stories, the really good writing, and always the let's say also homosexual relationship options.
Right.
They were always there. And that's just part of being a grown-up. If you don't want these things, then play children games. These are not games for tiny children. These are games for mature children and adults. They don't need censorship, at least not on this level. And it just bums me out.
There was things I remember about Miranda specifically, like they changed her name from some German name like Solheim or Sunholm to Lawson for whatever reason. And her original design was this tall, beautiful, genius, blonde, busty super agent. And
oh no, an Aryan woman.
Oh my God. And they had to give her, the blonde hair didn't work. It's like, really? The blonde hair didn't work? And the people modded it so she has blonde hair. It's like, that looks pretty good. Like, I don't mind it. The thing is, they used the face of Yvonne Strahovski. I can't remember pronounce her name, but she's Australian. And she has blonde hair and, she looks gorgeous. It's like, why don't you just do that? Just take her, use her, and don't worry about coloring hair and this and that. So.
Oh dear.
But because of her Australian accent, I don't know, they didn't like it. I couldn't tell you.
And you get another voice actor, so what?
Yeah. She can speak without the accent, guys. She's an actress. She's good.
Yeah, and the last thing on that, because I haven't seen your video from today yet, but I knew from before that the game is not actually part of the Legendary Edition, which is why?
You get a helmet.
You want me to buy the random merch for what reason?
You can buy the case. It could eventually be stored in. It's like, why would you want to buy a case for this stupid stuff, like a spinner, like a pin that you could rotate to make you? I don't like all these dumb things.
Yeah, and what I see there is simply, okay, we can't make games anymore because we don't have the people anymore. We only have these crap people. And so let's rehash the old games that sold well. And okay, we're even too dumb to really make them 100% the way they were.
Yeah.
Like they're missing content. Because, we would have to rebuild that from scratch. Yeah, then do it.
Yeah, that's why I want to buy it. That's why I would buy
fucking
it.
do it.
Yeah.
You call it a remaster, and then you don't even have basic content in it.
Yeah.
Come on. You just want to make money off of an old franchise when it worked well, and you're even fucking that up.
And the sad thing is, it will sell just because it's the original Mass Effect as opposed to Andromeda, which wasn't that.
It will probably sell more than Andromeda, at least.
The original Andromeda, whatever limited edition, was $200 without the game.
Oh my God.
That was with the car. So at least you got a car to play with. That was something to have fun with your kids or whatever. But this edition with the helmet and the spinner, or the pin spin, whatever you want to call that thing, is $150, and that's Canadian bucks. So it's and an art book. Like, hey, art book, $150. Oh, okay.
At least I'm still hoping that this summer, one of my favorite games is supposed to get a second entry, and I hope it won't be messed up. I'm not looking into spoilers. I want to be surprised. And I hope that Evil Genius 2 will be amazing.
Oh, yeah. See, I'm like that, but with Pathfinder. Pathfinder's my the hardest hardcore RPG, like tabletop RPG rule set I've ever seen. So it's
nuts. Pathfinder is the continuation of the Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 rules by the people who made all the additional content, who made the Dungeons and Dragons magazine, I think. And Wizards didn't want to continue working with them, so they decided, hey, D&D 3 is open gaming license. Big mistake by WotC, by Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah. Because
open gaming license meant that all the base rules were free to use by anyone. And so they thought, we'll make our own Dungeons and Dragons with blackjack and hookers. And they knew what they were doing. They were really streamlining the thing. They were expanding all the rules for great examples, all the subclasses. It's wonderful to play around in that. Even if just for inspiration. If you want to write a story and you just go through the rules and you find inspiration.
Oh, God.
Sad thing about it. And I loved it. The first book's amazing, but you can see just on the rule books over time how the artwork quality goes down and the female characters lose their curves.
And it's not just because they're like half elves or elves; they're actual humans.
They too got subverted by social justice, and that sexy girls are haram. And therefore, we need to make them look more boyish. Like this. The most obvious example is the barbarian girl. I think she looks really amazing in the base rule set, in the base rule book, and then in a couple years down the line, you see her in the book, and she looks like a boy.
Yeah.
With and just as flat, and says, what happened? What happened? Did someone curse you? Did you find it? Did you find the belt of gender bending that you can't take off?
Oh boy,
This just makes me sad. It just makes me sad.
I'm still waiting for Baldur's Gate 3 to be fixed. Whatever the bugs are done, I don't know when, but
I haven't played it yet.
Yeah, I'm not interested. I just never.
I just have to. I have so much in my fucking backlog. I want to play Planescape Torment again, but just on this thing with the artwork alone, this proves to me personally that SJWs do not give a shit about lesbians because they do not want sexy women. Lesbians like to look at sexy women. They like to play as sexy women. And even non-lesbian women like pretty female characters and even protagonists. But it's just SJWs who don't.
Yeah, well, I can't speak to that. That's been going on for years now. So
it's just a pattern I'm seeing, and it's
lots of bending of the knee to these types just to talk about race and gender. Like, okay, that's enough. The fantasy is no longer fantastical. It's kind of silly now. So anyway,
everything has to come back to the dogma, come back to the socialist Bible.
it's like you're rounding off all these edges and all these things that make something desirable for the sake of an argument. You're like, that's not why we're here. We're here because of those edges.
It's like, and before because I might forget this later on, and then we can continue. Because we talked about the role-playing games a lot. It reminds me a lot of the Christian conservative helicopter mothers.
Really?
Who most famous for the Satanic Panic, who also wanted to control everything, wanted everything to be chaste and nice and non-offensive. And this is the same thing, just that the conservative Christian mothers, they never got into the companies to actually change the things on purpose, so they never had the power. They were just standing outside and yelling and complaining like the Karens they were, so we could ignore them. Problem is, with the SJWs, they were also crying and chanting and whatever outside, and we were ignoring them like the Christian mothers, because we thought that they're just going to go away the same way. But while we were looking away, they got into all the companies. While we were having fun we were just having fun, just living our lives. They have enough activism in them that they really want to get into the places where they can affect the change. And that is everyone's, it's also my failure that I didn't do anything to get into some place like that, sacrifice my free time and happiness and health. Well, I already did that 10 years before in other politics. But to take a stand against these people so that they cannot influence our happy hobbies. It could happen because we were all looking away, because we thought, this is going to go away on its own, because it's just too dumb.
Okay.
Nothing's too dumb to take power.
All right, let's get back on track.
Okay. Sorry for the rant.
Yeah. All right.
I got my whiskey.
The word. I'm totally sure that Shatner has been called old derogatorily.
Ugh, this old man saying old man stuff.
That is an ageist way to use the term old. It's a derogatory way to use it. But again, old is just an adjective descriptive word. Just like the word white, just like the word cisgender.
So there are no
Shatner's
insults?
own examples illustrate how cisgender can be used derogatorily while not itself being a derogatory word. So I don't think that Shatner's rants about the term cisgender are intentionally transphobic, at least in his brain, but just come across as unaware of the term's common usage and just assuming that it's derogatory because he only encounters it in a derogatory context.
So, wait. So she's admitting it is derogatory. Thank you. That's great. Jesus.
Yeah. And I have a question on this. What do you think Jesse would think of the word trap?
I wouldn't know what she would think, yeah.
Because SJWs inherently assume that trap is a derogatory term towards trans women, which it is not. Trap only describes a competent crossdresser. Crossdressers do not have gender dysphoria, they're just having fun. Some are fetishists, some really just have fun.
Yeah.
And a trap is just someone who does not have gender dysphoria, but passes as female in the case of, we usually use it for cross-dressers who go female. And SJWs took it upon a personal crusade to call out the term trap to be transphobic for some reason, while the actual trannies disagree. Tranny also, they say it's a transphobic term. We don't agree, just like people of certain races don't think that certain terms are offensive, but the white knights of the social justice movement think it is. And it's very annoying because we can... the gay people. Gay was a derogatory term at some point, so was faggot. And many said, no, I own that.
Yeah,
and that took the power away to be derogatory.
That's
like the German word is schwul, and that was derogatory, but they own it now, and now it's common parlance.
That's what happens with SJWs. They take that as a badge of honor now. Whenever you call someone SJW, it's like, yes, of course I am. That's what I believe. You're like, oh, really? And they go and tell, oh, look at this person who's saying these things about SJWism. Look how silly he is. He doesn't understand us. And it's like, if you're going to just
I understand you very well.
retreat and attack others just for calling you a name which you embrace, then you're not doing much. It should be a neutral, this is what I am. It should be a neutral impact on your life if you embrace the name, not some sort of schoolyard game you play with your friends to laugh at others for correctly identifying you. It's kind of like when people call me or other people on the Smudcast reactionary. We're like, we still don't know what that means. We've heard the definition. We don't agree with it. We don't care for it because that's not what we are.
What was the definition you got?
The reactionary term is anyone who is a critic of, I believe, back in the 60s or whenever it was, of social or communist style statements. So people who criticize
that was in the 30s already. So I was in Germany, in Weimar.
Really?
They count a lot of the terms we have now we are now more familiar also in English in Weimar Germany as referring to socialism in some way. For example, progressive was termed during Weimar Germany as the advertisement slogan term to sell socialism to the people who were already apprehensive or fearful of socialism because it's quite a nasty thing. So they used another word to sell the same thing, the same poison. That is what progressive means when these people talk about it. And it's essentially what it, since then, always meant, because it's never really used in any different way, at least outside any academic context.
Right. And for us to, like myself or others, we're not politically minded. We might know a little about the history of this and that country, but we don't make political arguments. We sort of laugh at that. That's why we do these chats, because we don't take these things seriously. So when they start calling us names, we're like, that's not how we see ourselves or are defined as. So they're using all these esoteric terms that we sit there like, no, this is, I don't even know what you're on about now.
Yeah. So what it essentially is when they redefine or defined or redefined the word progressive or the word direct action is more of a construct, which ever since then meant the Antifa slogan, direct action, it means insurrection when you decode it. And what was the initial one here?
Reactionary?
Reactionary, right. And that when they redefined that one as always referring to opposed to socialism, because you are supposed to be for the revolution, for the socialist revolution,
right.
And if you are the revolution, the socialist revolution, which is an eternal revolution, you are reactionary, you are counter-revolutionary. And all this is newspeak. And all the redefinitions of words, that's all newspeak.
Yeah, it sounds like something from 1984, the Eternal Revolution.
It is. I learned this as a kid, and it was sold to me as this is a good thing. These are all good things. And then thankfully the wall came down. Berlin when the wall fell.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. It's all not fun. But yeah, it's all the word games, all the redefinitions, that is all of it is newspeak. And one big problem is why they get ahead with it is that no one is trying to take back the words from them. And this is the control of the words is one of the most uncontested and therefore most effective battlegrounds they ever had.
Well, the thing is, they won't engage with actual conversation about words. So
yeah, of course not. Of course not, because they say this is the way it must be, because that's better. That's for the greater good. That's for utopia. And this is right. Then now they control the dictionaries. They control organizations that control the dictionaries, and there's no opposition in there. So now they rewrite the dictionaries. And Then you go 20, 30 years down the line, next generation that grows up with these redefinitions of everything. People can't think logically anymore because they don't have the words for it. They don't have the concepts for it anymore if it wasn't taught by the parents. And there's one last thing on this. I urge everyone to look up the interviews on Valuetainment and Rubin Report with Yeonmi Park. She's a North Korean refugee, defector, whatever you want to call it. And she reveals some very nasty things of what is really going on in North Korea and what happened over the generations. And one of the things in this redefinition game is that in North Korea, they managed to redefine the word love. They redefined the word love so that the young generation only learns it by the definition of love is something you can only have for the dear leader. Not family, not your spouse, not your children, only for the dear leader. That's the only thing you can have love for. Other love doesn't exist.
All right. Let's keep on going.
Yeah.
Okay, so because I've hoped to describe here why someone like William Shatner might view the word cisgender as a slur or derogatory when it's really meant to be descriptive. And if that's all you really needed to know, then feel free to stop the video here because that's the main point. But I do want to get into a little bit muddier waters here for a minute, jumping off of Shatner's last tweet. The minute you try to talk to them, they adopt victimhood and try to argue that they need it to define racism and white privilege. Racism has existed for thousands of years across many different skin colors. It's not just white against everyone else. So as I said, here's where things start to get a bit less clear. Because you see, now Shatner's talking about the opportunities he's had to learn about what I've just taught you, that cisgender is just a descriptive word and not derogatory. He talks about how he sees people trying to normalize the use of the word cisgender by claiming victimhood. So let's get into that little nugget. I've tried to lay out the history and origin of the term cisgender in the rest of this video as something clinical and scientific and just evolution of language. Just a word to describe a state of being like young or tall. But certain terms that are descriptive also have gotten wrapped up, as I've said, in political discussions. Take a look at, like I said, the racial terms of black and white. Saying black people and white people is descriptive. There are black people and there are white people, at least, are culturally social created versions of what those definitions are. But you see, the terms black people and white people are really describing a long history of power structures within the United States, where I and Mr. Shatner live, which have historically valued white people more.
Okay, then please explain to me why we have to deal with this bullshit in Europe. Especially in countries that didn't do much in colonization or at all. Didn't do any slave trade stuff at all. Why is it leveled at us?
I understand what she's getting at, but in the same context, we could say that the word white or black is also neutral, but we understand from Shatner's perspective that people on Twitter are accusing him of being cis this or racist that. So he's not wrong. And
yeah, I like Shatner's tweet. That seemed on point.
Right. So if he's got the right context, then you can reform the sentence or the word any way you like there, Jesse. It doesn't make a difference. Mm-hmm. It's like saying there's a white guy. That's a racist statement. It's not a bad statement. It's not a good statement. What's the context? If I'm just in theory saying there's a black man, there's a white woman, whatever, it doesn't mean anything. It's just I'm describing this or that. But when we're calling someone a cis white male, and I don't know them, I don't know the tone, I don't know, aside from the conversation of previous tweets, if you could even call that a conversation, where it's coming from, it's probably not a nice thing to say in most cases.
There's also a difference. When you say white or black, you are judging on skin tone, something you can actually assess to a degree. The word cis is an assumption. You do not know whether that person has gender dysphoria, whether that person intends to transition. You don't know that. You assume that because this person doesn't seem to go off the gender archetype or stereotype. They just say stereotype. I think archetype would be more accurate. And I lost the thought a little, but I think you know where I want to go with this.
Right. Don't worry about it. It's okay.
Okay.
All right.
The other thing here is Rose of Dawn on her stream yesterday. They went about the coming out of as trans of the channel Philosophy Tube as trans, and the statement read very similar to the one of Ellen Page, where there's this little thing about, oh, I'm free, I'm finally. So this was just a small sentence, and then there's this huge bonk of like 90% of the thing is just pandering to social justice politics, and also the claim, and really hard doubling down on that yeah, because we are trans, we are oppressed. So stating it outright in the coming out letter. Fairly big channel, I think 850,000 subscribers. And Jesse here now says that it's not used as a victim narrative. Come on.
Yeah, as soon as you become public with anything, and it's a sensitive topic like sex or identity, it's usually to get brownie points. It's like, look at me,
yeah.
I'm this person, feel what I feel, or try to come down to my level. It's like, okay, sure.
It also depends on how it's written. When you are a somewhat public figure, which is a relatively big YouTube channel, kind of is that, like, you want to tell your subscribers that, hey, this thing is going on.
Right.
Okay. I can understand that. If you are some celebrity of some kind, similar thing, you are a person of public interest, but that also means that the rules work differently for you.
Sure.
Like this whole thing about dead naming, it doesn't really work for public figures.
Right, and once you come out, it's like, okay, we know this is the moment where you're publicly announcing things. You should no longer have these skeletons in your closet or whatever issues that you're nervous about. You should be done. Your cathartic moment is over. You're bearing witness to the world, and these issues of people calling you different names you don't like should no longer be a factor in your life, because you've matured enough to get the courage to say, this is what I am. Like, great, fine, fantastic.
Yeah,
get on with the rest of your life, please. Please continue. There's more to you than just
and that's the thing about these coming out letters of Philosophy Tube and Page. In the same way, they're not personal letters about, here's the thing, I feel better now. That's it. Instead, they go into a tirade of activist zealotry. And that makes them look very, very, very phony.
It's redundant, and there are some good celebrities that do that. I saw, was it the Try Guys? One of the gentlemen there is was he bisexual or homosexual? I don't remember. And he had
I'm not following them.
He just came out last year, but he did drag, and he was doing all sorts of fun stuff throughout his life, so it's kind of like, oh yeah, no, like it wasn't a big surprise, but it was a big emotional thing. They did a music video and all these they're entertainers, so obviously they know what to handle that. And that was it. After that was it. He's like, yeah, we got other stuff to do. Like, he's too busy to care about all that other stuff, which I appreciate. So
yeah, and there these two letters both played the victim card for trans. Being trans, it means I'm a victim, I'm oppressed, and that contradicts Jesse here.
The obvious example of this is the United States' long history with slavery. But as we see with recent protests for Black Lives Matter in this country, these power structures still exist today through forms like policing. Now, if you don't agree on that, sadly, that's an issue that I don't have time to devote to here, but dear God, just literally turn on any TV or a YouTube video on the topic, because that's literally our entire cultural conversation right now. Other than, pandemic. But bringing it back to the point here, these same type of dynamic power structures, like the ones we see between white and black people in America, or, to use another example, rich or poor people, also exist between cisgender and trans people as well. When we're talking about white or black people, or rich or poor people, or cis or trans people, these are terms that are used to describe differentiations between people which don't really exist on an actual, like, level. Like, no one is born rich or poor. No one is actually born, black.
You want to bet?
What?
You don't think you're born into a rich or poor family? Really?
Oh, God. There's this. I wondered if I pushed the pause button before, but I have a feeling this is going into because it's implied already, because Jesse talks about power structures.
Yeah, I know.
So this will go into so I'm maybe I lose this bet because I don't know where Jesse may go with this, but it's very often that the buzzword and policy term of socialism, beloved, will fall, that is redistribution, not just of wealth, but of power.
Yeah, it could be more of a feminist thing. It could be more of an economic thing. It's some flavor of socialism. She's just not going to take the socialist route, I think, because she's not.
Yeah, but it just may come up, and this is what really, really surprised me. And sorry, I go off into that philosophy tube thing again. It did talk, that letter actively talked about a redistribution of power. And this is just, it's just outright socialism every time. And I'm just, I hope I lose this bet, that this word will not come up here.
Yeah, I'm going to say no, just because I've watched a few of her other videos. She doesn't get into politics like that. She has talked about, the politics of Star Trek and this and that before, but not within some sort of socioeconomic lens, which is thankful, because, oh my God, it's so stupid.
Well, it's one of these things that is seeping further through all these ideologically possessed people. Like, everyone is getting a little more radical, a little more indoctrinated, slice by slice, over time, every month. So maybe not this month, maybe in 3 months.
Yeah.
Who knows? And then the lingo changes. Like, all the environmentalist groups now talk about, the government wants to take down this forest here to build a wind park. We are against that. And the solution to that is, we got new activists in our movement. The solution to that now is not signing petitions, but redistribution of wealth. Which makes no sense, but that is what all environmentalist movements turn into.
That
it's
was
all about redistribution of wealth.
That's one quote from Hayek. He says, all social justice it boils down to redistribution. So whatever you believe in, it's all about putting monies in another direction for whatever reason. So
but they never tell you in which direction they actually want to do it, because it always seems to go up instead of down.
Yeah.
Or white, these are things that we as a culture have created. Yes, someone may be born with lighter skin color or darker skin color, but the actual racial terms, how people are distinguished into groups like white or black, are culturally created.
Sure.
And the same really for cisgender.
This is exactly what I talked about before.
There are power dynamics and power structures that systemically benefit cisgender people and either don't help transgender people or, even worse, actively work off the harm towards transgender people.
Such as?
Again, this is a much longer conversation and list that I've done in many other videos, but to give some quick examples, there are statistics that show that transgender people are less likely to be hired, less likely to get accepted to rent an apartment, or given equal access to healthcare. So often when we talk about...
that is not due to them being trans. That is just your propter hoc fallacy. People with trans issues, especially in the US, because your healthcare system works completely different from what is going on in the various nations of Europe, because we all have different healthcare systems. They're usually a bit unhinged. That is usually, if you have actual dysphoria, you are in Great Depression due to the mental exhaustion from the dysphoria, which makes it a bit hard to get through school, university, get ahead in your job, especially have a career. And if you just believe to be trans because you have actually some other issue, then like schizophrenia can turn into that. You will have health issues that really make it hard to interact with you and really have a stable relationship, including work relationship with you. And that means that it's less likely that you will get ahead in life and that you will have the resources to afford help when your system relies on that you pay for it yourself. That has nothing to do with being trans. That has something to do with simply being, in some way or form, sick. People who just have depression, real depression. Like not an accentuation, that when you have dysphoria, you get depressive symptoms. That's not a depression. That's just related to the gender dysphoria. Just like if you have PTSD, you can have depressive symptoms because you are completely exhausted from your flashbacks. That's not depression. So treating the depressive symptoms alone won't get rid of the problem. You need trauma therapy. In these other cases, similar problem. You have a core problem, but if we're just talking about, if you just have a depression, you will have problems in life and getting that new place that you want, because maybe you just can't afford it. Maybe you look like a mess because you can't even make it through the shower. Yeah, that will lead to problems. But that has nothing to do with being trans or cis or something.
Yeah, we would, like she referenced stats, but I was like, which stats? Can you link? Is it in the description? Right now I'm going to go through the description to make sure, because it's like, come on, Jesse, you can do better than this.
Yeah, that's a good point. But it's basically, it is a straw man, what she brings up here.
Yeah.
About cisgender and transgender people, we are often talking about these power structures that exist and the struggle that many trans...
You know what? I'm getting tired of all these power struggles that exist that they never point to.
Yeah, because it's not power, for fuck's sake. It's sick people who need help, and that's it. It's not about power.
Yeah.
If you're sick, if things are just not that easy.
Yeah, like
if you're disabled, things are not that easy. That's not healthy people discriminating against disabled people.
Yeah, she went from cisgender to racial, and like, what's the power structure between whites and blacks? Like, what are you talking about? There might be. I just give us a context that we can wrap our brain around and say, oh, the judicial system is like, what judicial system? Which section of the world has a white-black power dynamic where the whites get favored from the over the blacks for whatever crime one race commits? Like, show that to me. Give me an example of a case or a news item or whatever.
And what they do is solely run on anecdotal evidence and cherry-picked evidence. They never go about the actual statistics, because the actual statistics, the actual data, is counter their narrative.
And I'm sure there's actual conditions or examples where one person was racially motivated, white or black. Mm-hmm. But most cases it's not. It's just... we have the numbers to back it up. And was it the Washington Post? I can't remember which newspaper did it, but they do it every year. And they check.
I've noticed this a lot in city council here in my town. The left party, the further left the party, we have about, I think, 5 right now, or 6. The left party is the most likely to always just paint phantoms they paint scarecrows to bully the other parties through emotional manipulation into doing a thing, or they are the bad guys. And they rarely have anything to back up their claims. It's just like, well, there's a Nazi on the hill, so we must do this thing, or we would support the Nazis. So to bring up the most blatant example of something like that.
Right.
Like, they paint a picture of anti-Semitism, or they paint a picture of racism, and it doesn't even make sense in any way.
All right, let's keep
And this is the same thing.
People are both on a personal level and on a governmental level to try to get equal treatment. Just as, for example, we see the same thing happening now with black people in America pushing back against systems and institutions at work that either work to exclude them or explicitly harm them. Now, I want to be clear, this is not me necessarily equating the struggle of race with the struggle of trans people in terms of scale or historical context or extent of harm done, but the basic dynamics at play are similar. So going all the way back to William Shatner's tweet, his words seem to be that he wishes to ignore these contexts, discussing institutionalized transphobia under which the term cisgender is used.
I don't think he's ignoring anything.
Yeah, he didn't talk about any of that. You are implying he's ignoring those contexts when, in fact, he's not even aware of them. because you haven't told him about any of that. So he doesn't even have the chance to ignore them.
He already addressed them as negative or derogatory, so he's using that. You could say, no, Bill, you're wrong. That's not derogatory. And I bet if you actually read the tweet he's replying to, it more than likely was. So, I don't get it. I don't know what she's like saying words aren't like that. It's like words are like that. I could give a normal sounding word like black man, and I could say it in a certain way at a certain time of day, and it'll sound very wrong and very bad. So, yes, tone matters, context matters, delivery, all these things.
Yeah. To me, it seems like it's like they want to insult, but forbid you to be offended by the insult, but also want you to change your behavior to the insult.
You can't reply back in a negative fashion. It's like, why not? No, you're using the word wrong. It's like, then why did you just insult me? I'm not insulting you. You just did. And if you didn't, then you should have apologized immediately, saying, I'm sorry, I thought I insulted you, but that's not the case. Then you could have a conversation. That's how it works in Canada. People say sorry all the time just because they want to make sure you're okay, and they didn't want to say anything, like they say something racy to a lady, or like, oh, what a beautiful looking hat. You're like, what do you mean by that? It's like, oh, I didn't mean to offend you. I just like your hat. Like, you really got to be careful with some people these days.
It's like they want to, it's like the insult games of 5-year-olds. I keep bringing that up because that's how they work. I can say the bad thing to you, but you're not allowed to say a bad thing back to me. Okay.
Yeah.
Shut up.
And even of institutionalized and personal racism when it comes to terms like
institutionalized, not institutional, institutionalized, which means there are institutions which are racist. Actual buildings with people in them that she could point to.
Yeah, show me the policy.
Yeah. Which judiciary board of which district of which state is racially biased?
Because if they actually do that, they are in violation of laws for actual equality, for equal treatment.
Yeah,
it's the same as in Germany. They also brought this wage gap nonsense here. You are to be paid equally for the same work. It's not about sex. It's just equal payment for the same work, for equal work. And if you are caught not doing that, you can sue.
Yeah, and if a judge is like, the group of people or the person or the district or the court, you can point to the judge and you could say, listen, we're going to do an investigation. This might get you disbarred, but you can easily do that. There's lots of exploratory committees, at least in Canada, that happens all the time because we find some crazy shit. We just got our Governor General fired because
nice.
She was a horrible, horrible person at the office. She was having they said a toxic work environment. I was like, what the hell does that mean? But apparently she was very, very rude and mean to others, and they were under some sort of iron fist or something to go to work. And I was like, what the hell? Like, she's this kind little astronaut lady. What happened? So
what?
You get
astronaut lady?
Yeah, she was an astronaut. I was like, everyone loves her.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys know how the Canada works, but we have a Westminster parliamentary system where we pretty much have ties to the UK or the Queen, and the Governor General is the representative of the Queen in our country. So anything, if we have an escalation of law or some parliamentary dispute, she's the one, or they're the one we go to contact the Queen, see what the Queen says. So they represent the motherland essentially to Canada, and she was.
You're not a free country.
Well, yeah, it is. I mean, UK has sort of given up all their empire a long time ago, but we still have ties to, in a purely ceremonial sense, to the UK.
Hey, you royal over there on the other side of the planet, please tell us what we should do.
Yeah, no, it happens. Like proroguing.
It's kind of fun.
I don't know if you heard of a proroguing parliament. That's happened a few times where we suspend parliament for whatever reason. And in order for that to happen officially, we have to contact the Governor General. The Governor General writes an official letter of whatever to the Queen. The Queen says yes or no, and then they get in contact with the parliamentarians and all the other crap to make sure it's yes or no and why. So big hubbub about Canada and shutting down. Because when you shut down Parliament, you're screwing over the people for 2 months or whatever. You're like, what the frickin' hell do we do? We can't ask for help. There's an emergency. No one does anything. It's like, this is not good. So, yeah, these things happen.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, but this is just a personal belief of mine. I think they are never suing for any of these things. Where be it the wage stuff, be it you have racist institutions,
right,
or anything, because they know deep down, one, that isn't there. Two, because of that, they could only lose the case. In the investigation, wouldn't find anything. So they don't even try that, but they keep telling the story. The story is always continued so that people start believing it.
Right. So in regards to, like, I think just today in America, or right now is happening, someone from the lower house, I don't know, some GOP member is getting booted out of whatever roles she has as a job. And this is a vote the House is doing on her. Whereas when Canada does an exploration on ethics or whatever, they are so pressured by that report, they resign. So they are this has happened multiple times to the Liberals in the past 3 years in our government because they've been doing ethics violations or they said something wrong years ago. Like, all sorts of crap has been coming up. And just recently, I think it was 2 weeks ago, someone got booted out of the Liberal Party. Like, this is nuts. I'm glad it's happening, but it's getting a little silly.
It's the internal Puritan fires that let only the most perfect people survive. Right.
So when we have like ethics violations in like a judicial system, that's a big deal, and that's why they were talking about Rudy Giuliani they want to get him debarred or whatever the term is as well, just because he represented a bunch of people who believe the election was rigged in the States. So you can do this, but you have to prove it. And you can't just say an institution or this judge. You have to actually say, okay, we're going to do an investigation. We got to talk to some member of the police department, and they're going to get a detective to assign to someone to figure this out. It's not just, it's just the state of Louisiana, they're all racists. It's like, what do you mean? What specifically? What happened? So I don't like this just generalization, and I don't like all these crazy talk about the people, because I've spoken to all kinds of Americans. I know that's an anecdotal thing to make an argument based off, because I used to do level 2 tech support for America for their cell phone systems and phones, and I actually talked to more Americans than Canadians, and more Americans were nicer all throughout the various states, and I don't know why. I was expecting some crazy ones. I did get some crazy ones, but the majority of Americans were great, nice people. So I don't know what's going on. But that's a horrible argument to make. It's anecdotal. So anyway, we're gonna keep going.
Yep.
White or black. I mean, he literally ends his tweet saying racism has existed for thousands of years across many different skin colors. It's not just white against everyone else. I mean, yeah, in the entire history of the world, he's not wrong. Sure, there have been times and places in human history where white folks were targets of racism. But guess what? Right here, right now, at this point in history in the United States, that's not the case.
Yes, it is.
Yes,
How can you say that? There's a clear example of this right here. William Shatner's an old white guy from Canada, and he's being a target of being called all these names just because he's not. I don't even know why they're targeting. What did he do? Like, what did he say that caused him to freak out?
Yeah.
What's wrong with having non-racial terminology used, or whatever he was talking about? What's wrong with that? Oh, you use the right pronouns. You use the right term for describing this man or woman, and you're like, so?
Yeah, and here in Europe, we were doing fine. We were getting along. People were seeing each other for their character and not for the color of their skin since the 90s. Best time ever.
Yeah.
And then it all came from the left-wing parties. They all started talking about race and how being white is bad, or being German is bad, or being French is bad, or whatever your country, in which country you are, and that everyone outside your own country is good. Unequivocal. Is that the right word? Without exception. People here are bad. People from outside are good, and that goes cross country. And yeah, suddenly racism is back, and it's for whatever reason.
Yeah,
it's aimed at us, and I don't know why. I mean, I know why they need a scapegoat, but
there's no.
It was.
Examples.
Things were fine. The times of exploitation and racism on the big scale. If you have a problem with that still happening, you have to go at the big corporations doing that. And they're the ones holding Africa down. That's where you need to go at, not at the people. The people are all, they're having parties together.
Yeah. I'm just curious why she said this. It's just like, what do you think is happening to him right now? Can't you identify what Shatner's, why he's reacting that way? If someone was accusing me of being a rape apologist or something, it's like, that's kind of cruel. Where did I ever, like, I would probably never say these things unless there's a very specific example of one person, and I believe this person to be innocent, and I would say he didn't do this, yada, yada. But
yeah,
it's very specific. And when they start using this language, it's like, yeah, of course they're attacking him. Why else would he react that way?
Why? Yeah, it was about this trans stuff. So why are you bringing race into the question? Why are you naming my race? That you say that is my race. Why are you saying that?
Yeah.
What does that help? What does that have to do with
the same
issue?
with reactionary or chud or all these new words? I'm just like, dude, where are you getting this? Like, why are you angry at someone disagreeing with you on points you've made, as opposed to just, oh, you're just a bigot, you don't know any better? It's like, what?
And for people who are against nationalism, they're very tribalistic.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of funny that way. It's like, do you know what tribes are in a social context, let alone a 2,000-year-old context? Like, it's the same concept, really. So
yeah.
Whether it's survival and food gathering, it's the same idea. Intellectualism.
If you extend this, you could say that a nation is just several tribes having allied together and decided, yeah, we're doing a thing together now. And which is, by the way, what the Native Americans in North America did during the time of George Washington.
I would say even in that regard,
they were planning a big alliance where on the edges you still do the border defense stuff, and in the center we do the agrarian stuff. Even in the regards of like the street you live on, if you live in a city, that's kind of like your tribe for all sorts of things: snow removal, garbage removal, traffic, property value for whatever reason, like they don't want new houses going up or whatever. Mm-hmm. So you are within your community, and that's pretty much natural. These people are coming at it from this weird social intellectual angle, who we all believe in social justice. Like, that's great. You believe in a claim. Why are you attacking others who disagree with you? Why can't you argue the points that you believe in so strongly? Because if you can't, why do you hold those values? And it's very simple to do this. All you have to do is engage with someone in a rational, fair, and nice manner. And I've heard debates, not necessarily on my channel, but on other channels, where they bring people up talking about aesthetics or some aspect of philosophy. And you want to get to the core. You want to get to the truth. So these are things which happen all the time. And none of these people, can be friendly. And you say, listen, I'd be happy to bring you on. We'll just have a private conversation on Discord or whatever. They won't come on. Mm-hmm. And we've even done this with public features or people that we've had on Smudcast. And we talked about the Gold Man and even Jesse Gender. We've welcomed them on, and they said yes. And they've never showed up. And we're like, why not? What happened? We never said anything negative aside from laughing at your crazy ideas. And that caused us to reach out in the first place. My guess is in personal experience with people like that. It's outside YouTube, because in political group context, is that deep down, subconsciously, and maybe in the back of their minds, in their consciousness even, they are aware that they cannot argue and articulate their arguments well enough, that they are vaguely aware of the weak points and of the holes in the internal consistency. And that leads to a fear to honestly engage in a discussion about it. Not a debate, but just a discussion, which is an exploration of the topics. Explain to me why you hold the belief you have, and if I have questions, enlighten me why the thing I see as a contradiction is maybe not a contradiction. Maybe I just missed something. These people can't do that. And at the info desk I was at for many, many years, I had socialists there, I had environmentalists there, I had average citizens there, and I had Holocaust deniers there. And they work the exact same way. They have an internal consistency they try to have, and they are vaguely aware of some holes in that, and they are afraid to look at the holes in the internal consistency. The moment you make them aware of that, cognitive dissonance sets in, and that can go one of two ways. Either they further explore the whole of internal consistency, and that leads to the whole worldview falling apart. And the human brain usually doesn't want to do that, because that requires a lot of thinking, that requires a lot of energy, and it basically destabilizes you for a while, because you have to rebuild all that. You have to rebuild your whole worldview. It takes a lot of mental strain. That is why cognitive dissonance at first is a protective function, because it comes up when, oh, here's a reality check that doesn't fit with my belief of how the world works. So if it's just this once, maybe it's just a fluctuation and I can ignore it. If it comes back, then maybe there's something to it, and I should reevaluate some of the things I believe. This is a possibility. This doesn't mean that the second time everyone's going to rethink their worldview.
No.
The thing is, people try to avoid getting into cognitive dissonance because it's very strenuous, it's scary, it's painful. Thinking is pain for the brain.
Yes, I admit that. When I had my little conversation with Jack Saint that one year, that was just like was banging your head against the wall. And, you know, it's been a while since I've done that, because that was back in university, but you realize that it doesn't matter what you say. You're either having a semantic argument, or even when he was stating that, I still believe X. It's like, okay. I mean, I wasn't trying to disprove your belief, but
yeah,
and you asked me questions.
Explaining to them doesn't work. So
yeah.
I'm honestly saying I've had this experience with Holocaust deniers, and I hope one did start to think a little. I don't know for sure, because I never met him again, but the one seemed to have some cogs turning. And this is probably more than any Antifa ever achieved. Thing being, you cannot explain your worldview to them. That doesn't change their minds. That just creates reactance. Reactance means your view, your contradiction comes to me, and I just reject it, because I don't like it. It questions my belief. It questions my worldview. For a narcissist, that means my being. And if you want these people to get into cognitive dissonance, because that's the first thing that needs to happen for them to have a chance at reevaluating their belief system, is you need to ask them questions, only questions. Explain this to me, that to me, so that they have to think, they're forced to think about the things they believe. And that is very exhausting. That can take several hours, and you still may get nowhere. You cannot change minds en masse, at least not out of the indoctrination. You cannot deprogram people en masse. Apparently, what we see with the SJW stuff, you can brainwash en masse, but you can't get them out en masse.
Yeah,
that's a bit frustrating.
All right.
Hearing it's it's not white people who are often oppressed based on their race, but black people. And just to say,
racism always existed, so stop calling me white and stop talking about me being a white person.
Is just really dismissing the very real issues that we as a culture need to talk about when it comes to helping fight for black people's rights.
Such as?
Similarly,
what rights are missing?
The same goes for trans people and the term cisgender. Sure, there have been times in history when trans people were uplifted for being trans. Take many indigenous American cultures, for example, where two-spirited people, which is often discussed as a form of transgender identity, were venerated in those cultures. But in most of the United States mainstream culture today, transgender people are most definitely not uplifted.
And on that thing, uplifted is, for one, it's the wrong term. It's just this culture and many other cultures on the planet encountered this issue in some form. And it's probably all meshed together, from the cross-dressing to the flamboyant gay to the one with actual gender dysphoria. They had no other means to deal with this, and they try to make sense with it. Cultures try to make sense with the tools they have, which in that sense, when they say two-spirit, that means they have two souls in their bodies. It's just this is our belief system, this is our mysticism, and if we put it together like this, that may explain what we're seeing. So it's an attempt with rational thought to use what you have to explain a certain phenomenon. And this is why it irks me when in when they have these 20 other letters attached to the LGBT acronym. They have the two in there as well, which is for the two-spirit. So why do you need to make a distinction there? And this is not uplifting. This is just some people did something to map out this problem. How is this uplifting? It's just a neutral stance towards it at best or worst. Uplifting would be what I understand when I hear the word, that it means I lift these people up to either the same level of everyone else or above everyone else. And that's not the case with terms like that. I do not understand why it's brought up like this. It sounds like a Fox argument.
That sort of example with the Native Americans is more to do with mysticism and religion. You could make some metaphysical argument, but I mean, you're not even probably talking in the same language at that point. So they have various terms. Like even in Canada, we know our Inuit have various terms for ice and water that we don't understand what they mean. So how would you enlighten them philosophically? I don't know.
Yeah, and on this matter of trans people are oppressed in the Western world, in this enlightenment that got stuck somewhere. In this enlightenment world that we claim to have, there's never been a better time for trans people, dysphoric or not. Never been a better time.
Right.
We have medical interventions, even if they are flawed, even if we can't actually transition the sex of a person.
Right.
We can get rid of people's dysphoria at the very least. We can't solve all the problems, but we can at least reduce the dysphoria of a person to a manageable degree. It happens with the hormone treatment. And what are you complaining about? What these people complain about is that there are medical hurdles to getting the castrating chemicals that I believe I need to have, even though I haven't been properly diagnosed, because diagnosis is oppression or something.
Oh dear.
So no, that's not oppression, and that is necessary gatekeeping. So because resources are limited, I don't know if the socialists are aware of that. As I said before, they seem to be aware of it when it's about environmentalist issues, but they are not aware of the fact that resources are limited, and that also includes specialists, that also includes time. That includes appointment slots. When it's about things they just want to have. They just want an ever-filled cookie jar, and they don't want to know where the cookies come from. Or who else might need cookie?
And are often harmed for being trans. So to say,
Don't call me cisgender because issues of gender always existed.
is being ignorant of the very real harm that trans people face. Harm that William Shatner and other celebrities who say things like this
What harm?
are being deliberately ignorant of, because it's clear he's had chances to learn and look at those issues of.
I see nothing wrong with being deliberately ignorant of the universe. I really don't. If you can't see beyond walls because you don't have X-ray vision, I see nothing wrong with it. It's not William Shatner's fault that he doesn't know what Jesse knows. And if you want to call him whatever name to describe his ignorance, I don't care. It's not his fault.
Yeah, that's I saw this very nice picture. You have a pie chart. That's a very tiny slice of stuff you know. Then a slightly bigger pie slice, which is still considerably small, stuff you don't know, and then the rest of the pie is almost a full circle of a picture of the universe, and it reads, stuff you don't know you don't know.
That's pretty good, based off the concept of a tabula rasa, that everyone is born without any knowledge at all or information, and then we go through life and all these things. And yes, the universe is vast, and we may understand some of the basics, the fundamentals of science, of physics, and say, yes, we have electromagnetic spectrums, we have all these other elements, but there's lots we don't know about the interplay of all these elements because we can't even perceive them. We don't have the senses to even identify and see the rest of the spectrum out there. So a guy in his 90s who's simply replying to a bunch of angry kids online, come on.
Why are you calling me names?
Yeah. What do you think he's going to do? He's not ignorant, and it's a bad thing. He's just, because there's these crazy kids saying crazy stuff, and he doesn't have time to deal with this shit because he's trying to be friendly at the same time he doesn't take shit. So I don't see what's wrong with this. And when we talk about, you don't understand the terms or this or that, or you're not understanding my point of view, I always have a 4-point level of reaction to these people. 1, they're ignorant, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with being ignorant. You're born ignorant.
Not a crime.
Nothing wrong with that. Step 2, you're stupid. You're not ignorant, but you don't understand the information. You don't understand what's going on. For whatever reason, you don't care. You got better things to do. You're not paying attention. You think it's drivel, whatever. 3, you're biased, which is the most obvious case because people aren't that... the people I speak to or criticize aren't that dumb, but they have these blocks, these filters that they just can't get out of. And I'm guilty of this. We're all guilty of biases, of course. We have preferences and things we like and dislike. But when we have critical arguments, we have to get rid of those biases, and we really have to put our mind through the gauntlet of argument and logic and reason. And if we don't do that, or if we do that, let's say we are one of these people, like, I don't know, who go into public debates or what have you, and we still have our same beliefs even after we've been disproven or we've been shown we're wrong, then the 4th stage is called lying. And we're either inventing things or we're lying to ourselves or lying to others. So that's the general, the stages of comprehension I have toward these people who say, oh, he's ignorant. It's like, that's fine. That's good. What's wrong with being ignorant? That's a great thing to say.
The thing about rational thought is, and rationality and rational argument and all that fun stuff, is that just because you can do that, or you think you do that, or you are actually doing that, doesn't mean that you come to the correct conclusion, because that depends a lot on the process you are putting information through and the actual information you already have. If you're missing key points in your processing, then you will get to a conclusion that is consistent with your whole process and with the information you were given, but it is still not congruent with reality because you are missing key ingredients.
Right. So we can say
that is a lot of what is.
We can imply, we're aware of logical fallacies, but maybe we don't know all of them. So we might be.
Yeah, but it's not just about logical fallacies. You can fall into not a single logical fallacy, but still come to the wrong conclusion just because of you base the whole process on bad data. and bad assumptions that you thought to be true because you haven't checked them yet. It's basically a follow-up error,
right?
Which
is similar to when we talk about aesthetics, and we could have two different conclusions, but the reasons for them are sound and logical and based on evidence. I don't remember I think Kant was talking about that, how you have two different kinds of conclusions that are just as logical and make just as much sense, even though they exist. And we see that, at least I see that with aesthetic judgments all the time, because someone can like a movie for one reason and another person can hate the movie for the exact same reason and explain themselves why. You can obviously go further, but for those arguments, you're like, yeah, okay, you can enjoy, like if it's an enjoyment, issue of pleasure, or I think this is cool, this is exciting, I think this is emotional. It's like, I tend to leave those reactions alone because it's all subjective anyway. When you talk about this is a proper way to do a horizon shot or a panning shot or whatever, if you're talking about a movie, like then you could say, yeah, it's you need clarity, you need to pan the camera, you have a dolly, you have all these other lenses you use, a wide angle lens. So we can properly argue, at least for video making, for the video, what we call the video grad, the cinema file or whatever you call those guys who are, this is not how you do a Dutch angle or whatever. It's like, yeah, okay. So yeah, we sort of say, okay, maybe it's not a Dutch angle, but it still looks pretty good, you know.
Yeah, and there's by the way, there is here's a point for objectivity in art. If any of you ever looked into cubism, which is you've probably saw at some point a picture of just shapes, and then there's 1, 2, or 3 of different colors. It's usually yellow, blue, and red, with at different ratios. And the guy who invented that, there is a science behind this, because it's a science of proportionality of size and color impression that humans naturally find aesthetic and pleasing. And you can argue, yeah, well, that's subjective, this and that, but there are heavy rules for that. There are formulas for that always work. And this found its way into city planning.
When you look at the original Cubist drawings and sketches of Picasso, they are highly geometric. There's lots of shapes, lots of lines, almost right angles at times. And as he progresses, he sort of gets lazy or does his own interpretations, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not saying he's good or bad, but yes, you're right. There are lots of geometric shapes going throughout.
It's surprisingly, it's a science. That is art that is at the same time a science, and it's baffling.
And these people who are subjectivists, or people who don't believe in teaching art or whatever, say no, it's all one person and their emotions on creating art. And I'm like, you know what? I've drawn and painted before. It's not all emotion. It's hard work. It's like focusing and imagining and visioning what you're doing before you do it. So a lot of just practical visualizes skill just to get the thing you see in your face or behind your eyelids to show up on the canvas is pretty tough. So it's not this emotional outburst like you think with music or dance or whatever. So
yeah. And to get back to Jesse, Jesse said something about extreme stuff, or maybe you said it. I don't know, because it's so long ago. Sorry. Right, you said it. That the kids that Shatner is interacting with believe in crazy stuff, and it is. I attest to you. I swear to you, on the urn of my grandmother, it is crazy stuff. It is pseudoscience, and these SJWs claim that what they say is actual science, and the actual science, the real actual science, is the pseudoscience.
Well, when you start talking to a gentleman or an older person about these crazy ideas and use words that don't make sense, you're already insulting them. Like, I would never do that to someone above 60. Start talking about crazy ideas that they either have never heard of or they don't even... Why would they even care? about...
As long as the 60-year-old doesn't ask about it.
Yeah, they're not interested.
Buffer.
They have other things going on in their life at that point. Especially William Shatner.
Let them enjoy sunset.
That guy is crazy. I don't know if you know William Shatner. That guy is nuts. Like the amount of stuff he does in a day, and the causes he's fighting for, and the places he has to
I
travel.
don't know about his private stuff. So.
Oh yeah,
I'm not that inquisitive.
Oh no. I don't expect most people to. He's like one of our Canadian big celebrities. Like, oh my God, William Shatner. But he's such a crazy guy. It's like, oh my God, he's rapping now. Then he's saving a bunch of horses in some part of the world, and you're like, holy shit, what the hell's wrong with it?
He's taking the Captain Kirk thing really seriously.
Oh God, yeah, he went nuts. He went crazy. He does everything. So
is it this kind of, I always played a hero on TV. Now I need to be a real hero.
Now I need to be a cowboy everywhere. I got to be a cowboy here, and I got to ride a horse in Clydesdale when I'm in Texas. And, it's like, holy jeez.
Ah, nice.
Yeah. Crazy guy.
Yeah, but it's like a bunch of religiously indoctrinated people get at some old guy and berate him about Jesus and how the Holy Spirit possesses you if you just pray hard enough, and that's what these SJWs are doing.
Yeah, it's just another form of fanaticism or religion that is a bit too emotional for a lot of people's tastes. So anyway.
Yes, with crazy terms and crazy words and crazy beliefs, esoteric nonsense.
Yeah.
Harm. And again, in differences in scale, but it's the same basic thing when people say all lives matter, when people say Black Lives Matter. When people say Black Lives Matter, they're not saying only Black Lives Matter. They're just saying that
they do,
historically in the United
States. How old
is
this video?
Many people have not.
A few months. This was in, let me just check. August last year.
August. That was. I think that was still. That was already debunked and explained with interviewing all of a lot of the peaceful protesters.
I just love it that they get offended because you say all lives matter. Because no.
How dare you? Your life doesn't matter. No. My life
right
matters.
Now, the black people's lives really matter. It's like, well, they always did. What do you mean? We never said they didn't. But now they really matter because someone died and they were black. It's like, what? Excuse me?
Sorry, it was a criminal who was on drugs. So, the policeman was a bit shitty. Definitely, no question about that. But fucking hell, you are elevating criminals, drug addicted criminals, to the levels of saints and heroes. Of course, people are not gonna follow you.
Yeah, well,
of course they're gonna question that because you didn't have an innocent victim. If this movement was founded on provenly innocent victims, you might have much more of a point. But they always choose criminals being shot in a very bad situation or drug addicts.
I love the comparison. I don't know if you're aware of the wonderful attack on the States, the government building last month, and they said 5 people died or whatever it was.
And then
we
had one who tased himself in the balls.
I don't remember. I honestly, it was none of my business. I don't care. I'm Canadian. I'm happy enough that we have clean water and Trudeau is not at parliament buildings as much as he should be, because the more he's away, the better the country is for it. But anyway, the riots that happened all last year, I think they caused like 20 deaths or so. All this property,
I think
billions of dollars.
Was 40, and some of them children that were shot with malice.
And you're like, okay, and you look at the geographical spread, like that was the whole country pretty much.
Yeah.
Compared to like one event for one day, where they broke a bunch of windows and stole a bunch of crap, and they showed video of the guy, the guy with the crazy Viking helmet or whatever the hell he was shirtless and he had a bunch of.
It's just an intentional.
Yeah, he just walked around. He wasn't doing anything. He's just walking around the building.
Yeah. There wasn't even a fire.
No one broke people's boat. They obviously the public walls and windows and doors were broken. And I'm like, if you're gonna get pissed off at something, let it be a government building. Have them break a few windows, have them get their whatever juice out of their system. Fine. no one has to go home dead, you know?
Yeah, but what doesn't add up for me, and this is what I think when the German people would protest for a just cause, they wouldn't wreck the Reichstag. Because when it's patriots, they have respect for their government buildings. They won't destroy them. They want to hold the people to account that are inside and making the stupid policy. But patriots usually have respect for their government buildings. They're usually more polite in that regard. And that is just something that the left doesn't care.
Oh God,
the left breaks everything.
We have all these.
They want everything to be rubble.
As a result of whatever is happening in the States, Canada now has all these calls for taking down our statues of prominent Canadians like Sir John A. Macdonald, the first prime minister. It's like, why would you do, like, who idiot agreed to taking down or vandalize them in Montreal, or all these other stupid stories because of what America's doing in...
we have that happening in Germany. We've had pro-BLM protests in Germany during Corona times when it was said, no, you need to stay home, social distancing. Nope. Hundreds of thousands of people protest for BLM in Germany.
Yeah.
And there are places where the left is in charge, and they're setting up new statues in this day and age for Karl Marx.
Really?
And I kid you not. And all the while in East Germany, there are a lot of left-wing parties in charge in most places, and they keep renaming streets to socialist historical figures like Theodor Heuss, not Theodor Heuss. What's it? Ernst Thälmann and people like that. And it's just, why are you doing this? Many of these people are horrible. They're atrocious. We wanted to get rid of socialism, and now they're just renaming streets back to socialists. And erecting new monuments for them, for socialist leaders, while tearing down and questioning the ones we have. Famous poets like Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, Friedrich Schiller, because, these people had some racist thoughts here and there. Yeah, then why are you putting up statues of Karl Marx and Karl Liebknecht? Because those were fucking racist. And they were homophobes. Holy shit. Read their letters. Read the letters they exchanged. They were ranting about the Jews, about the blacks, about the gays. It's just...
dear. Yeah.
But they're heroes. For some reason. They are heroes.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
All right, we got 10 minutes left. Let's try and power through these, because I think we've gotten the vibe from Jessie and where she's coming from. So
values, and we need to be clear about that. Of course, all lives matter, but sometimes in this culture, we have not given black lives equal weight as white lives. And
okay, this is let's just, we already talked about, let's just keep going.
That's why it's important. The same goes for when you try to dismiss the word cisgender in a all genders matter sort of way.
So
oh God, stop. Why is there an apostrophe? That's supposed to be a plural. I hate you.
Yeah. I don't know why she wrote this out. Is this her own speech?
I would guess so.
What's the very real harm that comes to the trans community because they are trans? Like, what words are hurting the trans? Like, what is she talking about?
They're making this. They're making the herd up. That they're claiming issues we just do not have. The moment we pass is the moment no one bothers with us. And as I said last time, I think, the case for people with actual gender dysphoria is, so before transition, when you still have the gender dysphoria, is you're usually in too much suffering and too much pain to really deal with any of this bullshit and then do any of this bullshit activism, because you basically have a severe depression, or it grows into that. After you transition, you don't want to be bothered by anyone or anything. You're just happy when people accept you as the other sex. And so why put a spotlight onto you? We don't want spotlights on us. And if the moment we pass, we're treated like the other sex, which is fine. We don't want to be treated like we don't want to be treated for being trans. When you want to be treated for being trans, I say you are not trans in the first place because you want this label. You are in this to get this label, this sticker onto you. You can run around and say, I am this thing, treat me differently.
Yeah.
We do not want that. We do not want the sticker. We want to not have people know that we have the sticker. We hide the sticker. I'm
getting the vibe that Jesse gets a lot of reviews from Twitter or social media in general.
Yeah, and that's why we believe these people are all just grifters. They have other issues. This is an extension of narcissism and other cluster B disorders, where it's all about getting attention. So before this trans thing became big, the same types of people would have gone for any other fashion trend that would be socially exploitable. That gives them attention. Look, I'm special. That's what it is. And that's why we came up with the term transtrender. Before that came up, I called them transposers. Well, transtrender is the thing that caught on.
It's regarding the very real harm that comes to the trans community because they are trans. Now,
how?
On this channel, I always want to assume the best possible intentions for someone's beliefs and actions. When it comes to Mr. Shatner, and for many others who may see the term cisgender as derogatory, I certainly understand and sympathize where they came to that line of thinking, given often the context to which many of them have been exposed to that word and that point of view. I mean, William Shatner has shown at least nominal vocal support for transgender people as a whole, so I really don't think his pushback on the term cis is intended to come off as an attack on transgender people as a whole, just on the term itself, a term that he has only come across in one way, as derogatory. And therefore he assumes that it's the only way in which the word is used.
Just on this, to reminisce about yesterday, just as a reminder, I told a story from my life before I started the transition stuff. And sorry, I'm stuck in the middle. I never got voice training. That's why I never did YouTube stuff, because I wanted to get that done first. So I'm making exceptions here. In that story, I for organizing of an event, I asked an SJW. The term wasn't a thing at the time. But that's what that girl was, about why they want a certain thing done. That was, from the resources we had available, completely impossible. And instead of getting an explanation for that thing, I got accused of being that I couldn't possibly understand because I'm a cis guy. I have dysphoria. I've had it since I was a little kid. I had it at that time. I just wasn't open about it. But because I disagree, I didn't even disagree. I just wanted an explanation. She didn't know whether I disagreed with her or not.
Message
I just wanted to understand her point of view and why she thought what she thought. I get accused of being cis because I do not agree with her. She didn't know whether I was trans or not. So why did that happen? Why was I called that? Because it's meant derogatory. It's meant as an insult. It means that because you have this attribute, you couldn't possibly understand. Because you are, it's like saying, because you are black, you couldn't understand it. Because you are Asian, you couldn't understand this. Because you are white, you can't dance. Because you are black, you fail at university. What kind of language is that?
Yeah.
And this is the same thing. Because you are cis, you couldn't possibly understand this. You don't, and you don't know whether I am or not.
Here is Taker610. Thank you, sir. Don't call me cis because I reject your definition of it. Jessie is saying she doesn't have to respect my pronouns, how I wish to be addressed. I don't know. This is kind of their thing. Like they have to declare their pronouns in some weird sort of way of expressing themselves so that they feel respected or
It's like it operates more like royal titles.
Oh.
These are my titles. You have to name them, or you are insulting my royalty.
Message coming in. Patching it through.
We were having a problem with Curio just because, as I said before, my eyes don't lie. Even
I
though
haven't
my
watched
brain...
the Curio videos. Sorry.
Okay, well, the Curio video is, we're listening to him, and on the screen is they, them. I'm like, how the hell do I have a third person pronoun referring to I'm like, all right, so everything has to be in third person. Like, all right, I got to change my grammar just to refer to a thing or person. While my brain, my eyes and ears are going guy. So I always come out with he, her, because my brain says he, or my brain says her vocally, but the rest of my senses say he. So I gotta do that double take. Because I don't know if you've seen a Curio video, but it's it's a clown. I'm looking at a clown.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but the grammar thing that's its own topic, and I can rant on that because in Germany they have been at the restructuring of language ever since the 60s here, and it's an absolute mess. As far as I'm aware, they haven't come up with any third-person pronouns in German yet. They try to, like the XEM stuff. They tried that, but of course that's too alien, so it didn't catch on. The English, this they/them stuff, kinda does. I see it in subtitles of movies at this point, and it's always used in a completely confusing fashion and an unnecessary fashion. And it doesn't make sense because you're using a plural third person for referring in a singular fashion, and that doesn't work.
Yeah. So I just could not, I don't like having to force another, I want you to refer to me as Mr. Smud or whatever. It's like, that's just, we're having a friendly conversation. I can't see your face. I'm doing the best I can with your annotations of your voice. Let's go with that.
Yeah,
okay?
why? Yeah, and you can see in media, in movies, TV series, 20 years ago, and before, the same issues about I don't know what sex this person is I'm referring to. People knew their ways to talk around that. That it worked in the English language. That people just spoke a little bit differently, and everything was fine. You can see this if you want to rewatch all of Star Trek. You can see how this works. This stuff just came up in the past 10, 20 years because it was pushed in schools by language engineers. It's not an organic product. And especially people who are not English natives are hellishly confused when this stuff happens because suddenly I don't know. Are you talking about a group of people now? What are you talking about? Because it sounds like you're talking about a group of people all of a sudden. Well, we were just talking about one person.
And
those are you talking about something different?
Those are actual real pronouns that you use in language. But when you have this, you said the list of 110 or whatever the number is of pronouns out there, it just becomes ridiculous. So, yeah, we have
just
to deal with this.
108 gender samurai.
Yeah, well, this is a legal thing in Canada. Like you actually have to speak a certain way if you are asked to do so, and I've never seen this enforced. I don't know what it's like if you don't do it. Is the language police going to come and round me up and put me in jail for a day? I don't know.
You can assume that this is just put in place because it was easy to put it in place, and at some point when the socialists have enough power, they have this and various other tools already in place, and then they flip the switch, and then it's hard enforced.
Yeah,
that point has not yet come, but that point may come.
If it does, it's
just putting the setup, and that is what Peterson also got right. It's a setup for later use, and it is the worst form of censorship because it compels you to speak a certain way, and that should never be done.
Yeah.
Not just forbidding words; it's saying you have to say it this way, or you are in violation of the law.
Yeah, we have the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The second part talks about freedom of speech, very similar to the First Amendment in America. So
you have to say the Earth is flat and the sun revolves around the Earth, or you get the stakes.
Yeah,
that's not very nice.
But, and here's the but, he can do the work to learn the truth behind the term. He's a powerful celebrity.
He doesn't have to. No, he doesn't. We have words for a reason. He doesn't have to learn new words to have a conversation with people who are trying to badger him for whatever reason.
And here I give the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he did look up the word and thought, why are they calling me that? It's unnecessary.
Yeah.
With a time on his hands and people who are willing to educate him. Hell, I just spent a whole video talking about this issue in context of trying to educate him, and he is clearly not a dumb person. I think he seems to be a very smart dude. I mean, clearly he's pretty successful in life, so he's got some things figured out.
Yeah, he actively does care about people, trans or otherwise. He just doesn't want to speak to people who are rude to him. I think this is a very simple conversation that we saw over the course of a few days or whatever it was on Twitter. So
message coming in.
Why are you bitching
patching it through
that he may or may not know the etymology of this word or the real meaning behind it? Like, who cares? Was he wrong or right?
Forest, it echoes out.
Sorry?
The badly translated proverb.
Oh,
sorry. I thought you were done, and then I accidentally talked over you. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. You do it again.
I try not to.
Okay, all right. Arun Harushan, thank you. Identify as a Gundam, and I will be addressed as such. Well, if you are actually a Gundam, we'll call you whatever you darn well please. So, yeah. If someone pulls up with a tank in front of your house, it's like, I wish to be addressed as an Apache attack helicopter. I'm like, wait a second. I'm not going to argue with you. But
you're still not an attack helicopter.
You're still not one.
Still a tank.
I'll call you that if it makes you happy. That's okay.
Yeah.
This information is inaccessible to him. And again, I get it. If you're online all the time and the only time you see the word cisgender being used is when it's used to hate
Jesse,
you,
stop defending these idiots.
You want to say, screw everyone who uses that term. I don't want to ever use it because it's been used to hurt my feelings.
That's a natural reaction that comes out of this.
I understand that. But if you are a person with a powerful platform, a platform that some people listen to and respect you for because you were a dude who was on a show that really means a lot to a lot of people, you do have some level of obligation to make sure that when you say something with that platform, you are trying to minimize the harm you cause. This is not me saying
William Shatner shouldn't have free speech, or William Shatner should just shut up.
I'm not going to say he can't say what he said, but just that what he has said can be harmful to vulnerable groups.
Oh my God, Jesse, stop it.
Oh God, that.
Did he do something good or
which
bad?
Part of the narcissistic strategy is this now? This is part gaslighting. It's minimalization on her part. It's a guilt trip. It's everything wrapped in one. This is salad.
She doesn't even have a succinct point. Like, what did he do? Was it right or wrong? Which one? If it was wrong, he should do X. If it was right, then we shouldn't have a problem. So obviously there's something wrong here. Which is it?
What I think is going on is the SJWs got they stung into a wasp nest. They got stung a little bit, and now they have to somehow find the logical framework on how to frame this in a way of it's not our fault that he's upset. It's somehow his fault, but because he has a big platform, we also want him on our side. And if he doesn't do that, eventually they will try to tear him down completely.
I know, but he did not say anything.
It's just this mindset of you need to do what we want somehow.
Yeah, it's like
I'm getting a headache.
It's like listening to a politician. He said something to apologize or to make amends or whatever he did. Oh, he didn't do it enough. He didn't say the right words that we use to talk to. It's like
you must never apologize to fanatics. Never.
I know, but when you're talking about Canadian politics and you're a politician, you're apologizing with everything you do. So it's kind of ridiculous.
But that way you just you just give them power, because with the apology you say everything you claimed about me is correct, and therefore any punishment you now give me is justified.
It's fascinating because they will forget about that apology like a month later. So to do it is almost like it
pointless.
It makes them feel better, so you get them off their back, because our leaders are so inept and they do so much shit. And that's the problem, because they will do things like, oh yeah, I had blackface back in the day. I had blackface multiple times throughout my entire career when I was, groping people and doing whatever. It's just like, really? That's our prime minister? That's the guy?
Yeah, when Trudeau does any of this and when they complain about cultural appropriation, Trudeau is the one who is actually insensitive about other cultures by always dressing up in the most silly and inappropriate ways.
Oh my God!
Because he likes dressing up.
Did you see?
He likes acting.
You saw the trip to India, didn't you? A few years ago.
Oh God! It was he wore some kind of wedding gown or something.
That was one of like 12 different outfits he wore. He invited a terrorist to one of the dinners he had. He spent. Like something like $5 million on the dinner or something stupid. Just like he spent all this money just to impress India.
Yeah, and he doesn't get reprimanded by the SJWs for his stuff, and he's the one breaking all the SJW rules.
He not only did he do blackface, but he also was carrying around a sausage in his pocket to give the mystique that he's a black man with a large penis and all this other crap.
Oh my God.
It was just like, okay, I get it. You were a frat boy and you taught whatever drama class and that was your thing. We get it. But maybe you shouldn't be a politician. Just maybe. You probably shouldn't be in the public eye.
What was his party trick? Falling down the stairs?
I don't. There's too many.
Something. I just
crap.
heard that from a Canadian friend. We haven't talked in years, but he's also politics somehow. I don't know. I don't know the details, and maybe I shouldn't disclose anything in that regard. So there's one bit off-topic thing I want to note here. These enterprise models in the background, they all the time they distract me, because why? I know why they are set up like this, so that you can see the wonderful top side of it, but it always looks like they're crashing. They're about to crash into the ground.
Yeah.
When I put up, I'm an old generation, but when I would put up these models, I want them either at a horizontal angle, where they're just put up like this, and then put them into a nice place, or have them in a way that looks that where they're flying upwards. Yeah, okay, then I see the underside, but that's fine. That's also how they wear in the show a lot. But this looks depressing. This looks like, oh, my ship is gonna crash. Why are they? Oh, why are you doing this? Sorry.
Oh boy,
it's just really distracting.
Okay, let's try to keep going.
It's like on the picture on the left side, the Enterprise. You see it flying upwards. That's uplifting.
Well, in space there is no up, so it's
yeah. Sorry, it's just what the fuck.
Okay.
Like trans people, even if that is not his direct intention, because people respect him and his words. So it's not that he can't say these things about the term cisgender, just that he probably should.
All right, this is retarded. This is so dumb. It's like, oh, the person I really admire isn't as smart as me in a certain topic that I know. It's like, yeah, and?
Jesse, I am not offended by what William Shatner said. Why is that? Why is that? Why can't you not be offended?
I could say, in general, most of us don't care. Like, we just do not have any concern for what he says. Even if it was like openly racist, I'd be like, yeah. So he's a 90-year-old man who's bitching on Twitter to some other people. It's like, what's wrong with that?
Yeah, but even if he wasn't a 90-year-old man, there is nothing to be offended about. Jesse, please explain to me, why am I, a tranny, stuck in mid-transition, why am I not offended by what William Shatner said, but you are, and you can't stop to be offended? And all these other weird people can't stop to be offended. But I can. Why is that?
And if she's not offended, what the hell is she trying to say? If she's actually not, like, we actually had her to talk to, say, why are you offended by this? She's, I'm not offended. It's like, but but I can see how his words could be misconstrued. It's like, yes, those people are called morons, and why would you listen to them? So it just is this level of intelligence in what they do with it is always frightening to me. But, anything that is political always frightens me when they say crazy things. So anyway, let's keep going. Taker 610. Government is becoming a joke everywhere. It's always been a joke. Sorry. It's you're just realizing that now?
It's always corrupting and degenerating over time.
Yeah.
And if you don't renew it softly, bit by bit, throughout this downward curve, it will go to this collapsing state, and then you will have to renew it in a very, very tedious way.
This is why we have Crazy Philosopher on. Is he always reminds us how great his government is in Switzerland.
Message coming in.
I only know that Swiss bureaucracy is worse than German bureaucracy, and that is an achievement.
Oh boy. Okay, let's not continue on that line of talk. All right. Brown Gaijin. What a cool name. Very, very apropos. The ship's crashing is a Freudian slip, amigo. Oh boy. What does it mean?
A Freudian ship?
A Freudian slip. Yeah, I'm like, really? How is it a Freudian slip?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm curious though. Anyway, maybe you could explain yourself in the chat. I'm happy to read it. Joe Crazy. Not saying you shouldn't, but you should. Yeah. Okay. We got 8 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, we can do it.
Or think a little bit more or research a little bit more before he says things. And even more so, I understand when people online get upset at William Shatner for saying these things because, again, his words can cause harm even if that's not his intention.
Good.
The biggest and most complex problem I have with all of this is now, where do we go from here?
Okay, I'll say the following thing. Why do you people call trannies who insist about the actual science and the medical condition medicalists, or at worst true scum? This is some more added to the true scum definition. It also keeps changing. But why are you calling people those things when all these people want is to make sure that people who are not trans are not harmed, are not being talked into being something they are not and will regret if they go this route? Why are you calling them names? Why are you insulting them? Why are you derogatory towards them? And as SJWs like to complain about being erased all the time, try to erase the people. And on this topic, there is down the street here. If you want, I can can go out and make a photo of it. On a bus stop, there is a sticker, and that sticker, it has been a long time ago, a couple of months. It reads something about true scum can fuck my ass, and then below that, true scum should die. So this is a sticker that was made by these people who call themselves trans and trans activists against people, usually trans, who are keen on the medical truth of the condition. Because these people, the trans activists, are threatened by the medical truth of the condition. So my question is, why do the trans activists complain about being harmed when what they do is lead others to harm? What I think is the trans activists who are living in this actual construction, this fantasy, they are being harmed by being questioned, because then their fantasy falls apart, and they don't want that, because that actually does invalidate their whole being, because their whole being is founded on this lie that they are something they are not. And this is what they talk about when they talk about harm. They don't talk about they don't care about the harm they bring others. maybe it's too much whiskey, but because I'm trying to find a point, but I don't think I have articulated this before, so I have a bit of a trouble finding the right words.
I'm going to read a chat from Brown Gaijin regarding the super chat. It's a representation of how their ideals are going to cause the ship we're on to crash, which is the angle of the enterprises in the display case. So,
okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we're going to crash. I think they're going to crash because of their ridiculous ideas, but that's more of a mental exercise.
Yeah, what I hear from these last 10 minutes that Jesse is going on about is Jesse is complaining that Shatner isn't saying the right words, and because of Shatner's big platform, wants Shatner through this guilt trip that because you have this big platform, you have an obligation to say the good things. You have to say the gospel. Wants to use Shatner as another mouthpiece for the ideology.
Right.
This is what I'm hearing out of this.
It's the same when we hear about J.K. Rowling. Oh, she should be more sensitive about her comments on transgenderism. It's like she cares and gives to donate to transgender causes and such. So what do you want from her?
Yeah,
exactly.
From what I read from the tweets I saw from J.K. Rowling, she sounds like she cares about the people with the actual condition, not about the transgenders. And that is surprisingly, through her years of pandering, surprisingly grounded. That's what I could see. I saw nothing wrong with what J.K. Rowling wrote.
I know, and we always get I think it was like every other week it was J.K. Rowling saying, because she kept defending herself and she kept hitting back, and I was like, wow, she really is passionate about this topic as an author.
She had found her limit, her line in the sand that she did not accept to be crossed, which I'm surprised by. And many people don't have any of such lines in the sand.
I talked not on Smudcast, but I talked on Morning Nonsense with LitDev, and we were like, yeah, this is totally fine. Like, we read it, we're like, are we misconstruing this? Are we not interpreting this correctly? But everything she wrote seems totally fine. She believes in caring for people and all their rights and all their freedoms. It's like, yeah, this is exactly what you would expect from someone who believes in these things. And as soon as you go on Twitter, all you hear is the exact opposite of how she should be deplatformed. She's a horrible person. And I was like, what happened? And I did a few Google searches. I still could not find anything she said that, and this is just what she said, not what she did, or, she didn't attend a gala for some political initiative or something, like nothing like that. Just no, she didn't say anything bad. So this is, I think, Jessie has drunk the Kool-Aid, and she's just trying to rationalize how much gulps she took, and saying why can't Shatner have a sip? Why can't he at least have a gulp or whatever? It's like, jeez, come on. Please also take this awesome drug I have. It's really good. You just need to try it. Just try it once. Just try it. You have such a big platform. Come on, everyone will like it. Like, what?
See, Shatner has placed us in a really strange place.
No, he hasn't.
A place where J.K. Rowling was
a
few months ago. Because you see, a few months ago, before J.K. Rowling wrote her essay and said things about transgender people explicitly, it was discovered that she started to like tweets by transphobic people known as TERFs. And I'm not going to get into TERFs overall. If you want to know more about TERFs, here's a video up here
she liked tweets.
Sort of get you more information on that term.
J.K. Rowling is not transphobic.
Basically, the term TERF is akin to the word racist. The word racist is, again, just a descriptive word. We don't argue that the word racist is a slur. It's just a descriptor of something or someone that has negative views based on race. But it is also not a good thing to be a racist. Of course, most people push back.
Okay, yes, traditionally. In general, again, just according to Jesse's terminology of using words, they're completely neutral. So,
and you also at this moment, Jesse also implies that it's a bad thing to be a TERF, although it's just a word. And the strange thing is, and I think we talked about this briefly yesterday, or briefly for half an hour, that people are being called TERFs who are not feminists. TERF means trans-exclusionary radical feminist. There are people who may be trans-exclusionary, but they don't need to be radical and they don't need to be feminists either. I've been called... Here's the joke. Here's the fucking joke. I, too, have been called many things. I've also been called a TERF. I'm not a feminist. I am not trans-exclusionary. I'm a tranny. And if I'm radical about anything, then it is basic rights.
Yeah, it's like that statement from Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. Like, every single word of what you just said was wrong.
Yes, it's beyond baffling. I'm not getting enough air to be baffled enough because I just get from baffling to baffling.
Back against racist because no one ever really thinks they are racist, even if they are the most racist a person. They don't think they're a racist in their heads.
Oh, there are people who do that.
TERFs.
Are you sure about that, Jesse?
They don't want to be called TERFs because being called a TERF is a bad thing, and most people
If I actively hate a Chinese or the Chinese, I think I know what I'm getting myself into.
Yeah.
We're not... people aren't that stupid.
Call themselves TERFs. They do exist.
Yeah. I don't think Shatner goes, I'm going to suddenly hate some Chinese men because they ruined my lawn. Let me attack all Chinese. It's like, no, he's not an idiot. I'm sorry.
Acknowledge that the negative connotation. TERFs would rather be called gender critical because that term is less negative in connotation and obfuscates their harmful views. And also allows them to not cognitively
I am also confused. Yeah, I don't know.
Because I usually hear the term gender critical in the context of trans activism that talks about how gender stereotypes are totally problematic, and not in the sense of TERFs having problems with trans people. And the joke is that most of the problems that TERFs have with trans people are the same problems that real trannies with gender dysphoria have with trans activists who claim to be trans.
So here we have this is interesting. We have two groups, right? We have feminists or radical feminists and SJWs. SJWs are attacking the radical feminists by giving them names like TERF because whatever arguments they had. Mm-hmm. And now she's arguing about, these horrible feminists. It's like, what is happening here? Are we part of this conversation? Because I'm quite sure none of us care about these various flavors of feminism and social justice are doing to each other.
The joke is, at this point, neither the trans activists nor the TERFs have any care or connection to my kind of people with the medical condition. Neither of these two groups have any connection to it.
Yeah.
And both don't want us to. This is the joke. Neither of them wants us to exist. The TERFs, in general, deny the existence of gender dysphoria at large, and the trans activists also want gender dysphoria to not be on anyone's mind. Because once you talk about gender dysphoria, you talk about the medical stuff, you talk about the science stuff, and then you start talking about, eventually, necessarily, about sex differences. Because this is a biological issue. This is a sex issue, and we will talk about brain physiology. We will talk about other stuff that goes on in the body. And the trans activists, they don't want to talk about biology. They don't want to talk about sex differences. The joke is that while the SJWs initially used our medical condition to get a foot in the door to spread their weird esoteric beliefs that there are no differences between the sexes at all on any level. Instead, they now tell us, the truth is that gender dysphoria actually proves differences between the sexes if you look into it. And they don't want that to come out. They don't want that to come out because then everything falls apart that they have built. So we have two groups that are both in this feminist TERFs may also be in social justice causes still as well, and they all do not want our condition to be a thing. And I also know from various detransitioned people, very sad stories that I've talked with, that due to what they went through, many of them also do not believe that gender dysphoria exists in the first place because they were tricked into transitioning. So
Really?
that's not necessarily a belief founded in science, but just in people have abused me, people have put me through this. I do not believe this stuff I was talked into exists in the first place because I didn't have it. And I understand where they're coming from. And this is also something the social justice warriors do not talk about at all. They don't want to hear that detransitioners exist in the first place. They see them as traitors to the cause.
That's weird. That is, wow. Whew. All right. Let's. I think I know what the rest of our argument is going to be, so we can probably stop pretty soon.
Something else?
Sorry?
Take a breath.
I've been drinking. I've got my water. I'm fine. I'm good. But I think I know where she's going with this, and she's not going to have a solid answer to her title of the video. So, anyway.
Mental narrative make them the aggressor or victimizer rather than the victim. So they argue that the term TERF is a slur word, even though it's just a descriptor. But it is
like
a
trap.
descriptor that is only used derogatorily. So when J.K. Rowling was seen looking into and possibly supporting TERFs, even before she said all the stuff about trans people recently, many trans people were upset that a woman with a powerful platform was using it to tacitly, if not directly, endorse a group that was harming trans people.
She's not endorsing a group. She's liking a tweet.
And they reacted in understandable anger and called her a TERF repeatedly online.
Because they're children. We get it.
And that term, again, is descriptive,
it's contextually
but only
wrong
used
too.
in a negative context. So J.K. Rowling understandably pushed back against being called a TERF. And again, understandably reacted by not listening to the voices of the marginalized, because those were the voices who were angrily calling her a TERF, a term she did not like to be called.
Yeah, so why would you listen to people who are acting like children?
And they are not really marginalized. They're as much marginalized as children playing Power Rangers and then coming home and still insisting to be Power Rangers after they are done playing. And that is, I'm sorry, that is not marginalizing the children. That is telling the children, hey, snap out of it. Snap out of it. Because what J.K. Rowling went on about, liked, supported, was not harming people with actual gender dysphoria. What it did is call into question, threaten the delusional belief of what we call transgenders, people with is best akin in Münchhausen syndrome, where you make up conditions about that you have medical conditions that you do not actually have to get attention from other people. And fighting back against that is not marginalizing people. It's rather cleaning up the playing field of people who do need help, but they don't need to transition, and they don't need help with any gender issues. Or rather, at that point, maybe they do, but it's not in the sense that they need to be helped to transition, because they're not trans. They have false beliefs about themselves. And that is, by the way, if you go for a correct diagnosis about this, a good psychotherapist whose worth is salt has to rule out a ton of other conditions that could be either mistaken for gender dysphoria or could make you falsely believe to have gender dysphoria. Hypochondria would be one of these things. Escapist notions, because you want to run away from your life problems, and so you invent something and blame it on that. That is not necessarily Münchhausen syndrome or hypochondria. That is just inventing another problem so that you don't have to deal with your actual problems. That is something a psychologist needs to figure out, which is why proper diagnosis, if you just do it with sessions where you talk with your therapist, that takes about a year, because you need to get to know the patient. And this is just very simple examples. Then we have a lot of other issues when it comes out that okay, you want your test your gender dysphoria. Maybe you have gender dysphoria. Okay, first thing you do, at least here in Germany, is okay. We do a blood test. We check your chromosomes because maybe, and we check your hormone levels and all of that. We make a physical checkup to figure out maybe what you have is gender dysphoria. Maybe what you have is an intersex condition. So we check your cardiotype, so your chromosomes. We check. Are your organs working properly? Is something else causing mental distress with you? All of these things, because when it's an intersex issue, it can't be gender dysphoria. Intersex issues manifest in I think 24 different ways at least. It's an umbrella term. Some are very physiological. Some are very, very strange ones. Like the strangest one is it's called a mosaic, where you have essentially two sets of genomes, two sets of DNA, because the fetus merge with your twin more or less, and you absorb that, and so that can be that one set of that DNA has the cardiotype XX for the 23rd pair, and the other has it at XY, and this messes up with your development. Of course, your immune system is primed in a way that it recognizes both these sets of DNA as this is the body, so it doesn't. You have no autoimmune issue on that level, at least. Maybe there can be others. I don't know. Mosaic is a very, very strange and very rare condition, and this can, of course, also lead to hormone issues. Can lead to subsequently to mental issues, and your behavior is likely not going to conform with your phenotype, your outward perceived sex. And I know of one case that was in the UK that was very, and man, it really tugged at my heartstrings, because she was pushed as a girl into transitioning because the doctors didn't properly check her. They just did a blood test and figured, oh look, it's an XY, so this must be a boy, so we transition this girl now. And this didn't match up with a prior test she already had. They were just too lazy to do a third one. And when something like this turns up, you can't just go with the test is probably wrong. Just do the thing, do the procedure, and well, it completely messed up her development. It messed up her puberty, and some of the symptoms she described to me did sound similar to gender dysphoria that she didn't have before. And I've heard this from several detransitioners with whom I've talked, that some of the symptoms they develop through the transition sound like the gender dysphoria that we try to get rid of. And this is, I think, the worst thing of all. And I would like this to be studied. I would like this to be investigated, because if falsely transitioning people leads to them developing gender dysphoria, then that would be the biggest of all reasons to get rid of the social justice ideology that is abusing people and driving them, actually, because detransitioners, I completely understand when they have increased rates of suicide, because their lives have been destroyed, they've been castrated chemically. If you come out of that girl, she detransitioned, but she won't be a pretty girly girl. That's just out of the question. That can't happen. And after she got after she detransitioned, social justice warriors came after her because she's a traitor, of course, and the NHS left her bleeding, essentially, with her problems, because, oh well, you're not trans anymore, so you don't have a problem, right? So fuck off. And that's what she told me, how it went. And that's just absolutely, her body is wrecked completely, because she was mistreated for a condition she didn't have. Well, she had another condition, because they didn't check properly. and I'm sorry I'm droning on about this, but hey, you, Jesse, this is what you are enabling. This medical malpractice is what you are enabling. And then the people you are defending, Jesse, are coming after the victims of the malpractice that you enable for daring to detransition. This is a crime against humanity. I don't want innocent people to have to suffer because of a misapplication of the medical condition I have. But that seems to be irrelevant to these unempathetic people. And I try to be done and take a sip of my glass now.
Okay. All right. Well, we can keep going. I think I know how this is going to end, but it depends on how much time you got left.
I will make it.
All right.
Just 5 minutes.
Sure.
J.K. Rowling decided to listen to those who were telling her she was okay. That her being called a TERF was just people being mean, and they were just calling her a slur. And these people who were telling her that were other TERFs. And so this further pushed J.K. Rowling into TERF views because they were the only ones that were talking to her on a sympathetic level, thus making her more sympathetic to their harmful viewpoints, and eventually...
Stop. That is not true. People like me also gave J.K. Rowling support. Not just TERFs. Jesse, you are assuming that only TERFs can support her, that people who are trans, medically verified trans, could not ever support J.K. Rowling. You're drawing lines between people that shouldn't be drawn.
And we're talking about
this is black, this is black, this is white, and she can only be black.
We're talking about thousands of, not tens of thousands of people on Twitter who like J.K. Rowling and support everything she says and does, who even casually will like her tweet or reply to her tweet or whatever. So it's a pretty bold statement to paint all those fans of her as TERFs.
They're all demonized. They're all out of the club now. They're all outside the tribe. They're all outside the mob, and everything you throw at them now is now justified due to this. They're all witches.
Yeah, just wait this year. I'm sure she's going to say something else, and there's going to be another tweet storm. She's going to be trending again, and they're all just going to, oh, she's a horrible, horrible person. She doesn't like transsexuals. She's horrible to the gays and the LGBT community. It's like, here we go again. Happens every month or so.
Actually got to the point where she started publicly pushing for TERF ideology, and an ideology that, again, is harmful.
When did this happen?
Ideology.
Let's assume there's such a thing as a TERF ideology. When did this happen?
Can you please define it? Because that's all TERFs are, or what the problem with TERFs is. It's not an ideology. That's just one point of policy. That is, they believe trans is bullshit, and just flat out all trans, because and I believe that is an understandable reaction after 10 years of being just bombarded with this esoteric, unscientific bullshit that people like Jesse and Lindsay Ellis and Riley Dennis are perpetuating. It's just bullshit upon bullshit upon bullshit with no foundation in reality, in science. Science constantly rips it apart when one of these SJW people bring out a study that's just utter bullshit, and sometimes the data is good, but it's then actively completely misconstrued and ripped out of context and misinterpreted, like the famous brain mosaic study. The media, the journalists pushed the brain mosaic study, but they did not push the ripping apart of the brain mosaic study, which they should have done at the same time. They only pushed it, but they didn't push oh, by the way, the science says the study that we pushed is complete bullshit, because the data is good, but the interpretation is completely wrong. If you interpret the data correctly, it says the opposite of what the brain mosaic study says. So if you look for brain mosaic, you will find that thing. You will find articles about it. That should be enough indicator for if you want to look that up or look into that.
Trans people. And so I can see this same cycle starting to happen here with not only William Shatner. I've just been using him as a specific example. But there are so many other celebrities who are not up to date or as in the know on trans issues as many of us are. And so say things about the trans community that come from a place of ignorance, but are still harmful. And as a reaction, I see trans people and our allies getting very understandably upset and push back against celebrities like Shatner because they are indirectly harming our community. But by pushing back against them,
the community is a cult.
A lot of them are just furthering these celebrities into more ignorant and transphobic viewpoints, and even more harmful viewpoints than they ever have, and made them more firm in their convictions of holding those viewpoints. It's a really frustrating cycle that keeps happening over and over and over again. One where I totally understand it on an emotional level from both sides. I understand why both sides of the issue are upset and hurt and angry. Now, that's not at all to say that...
Okay, wait a second. If I understand both sides, why are you taking one over the other? If you can comprehend the problem of both.
That's technically all right if you understand both sides, but so I can understand the Nazi side because I see what they think and why they think what they think. I just think it's bogus.
Yeah, but this is coming down to a semantic argument. If only they knew the right words and what those words meant, they wouldn't say these things. It's like, well, if it's semantics, how can you blame someone for not knowing words the way that you want them to be taught or shown?
Yeah, because this is actually Jessie believes to know her own side, because but that itself is founded on ignorance. Because what people tend to not reevaluate or reflect beliefs and the ideology they already have. So she believes to know her own side, but she actually doesn't. Because if she would look into all of these things, they would fall apart. The beliefs would fall apart. That's what happens with the SJWs who do come out of the SJW cult. And that's what they tell. And when they get their reality checks and think, okay, this is too much. This is a bit too extreme. This is, okay, I can't argue with this data. And this is Deborah So, for example, a relatively famous sexologist who came out against all this nonsense. And she was a feminist. She was a devout feminist, believing in all of this bogus junk stuff, and became, if I remember correctly, became a sexologist, a sex researcher, because of all of this, because of her belief. But when she then was doing the research and reading the data and gathering data herself in study, in what she was researching, she couldn't deny what she was finding. And that is what got her out of this over time, because it's okay, there's all this data here, and then I thought it's all anti-feminist and it's all transphobic, but it's just there. It's just the data. I can't argue with the data. The data is just the data. And the data says the things I believe are wrong. And that's how she got out of the cult. She was too confronted with the facts. People like Jessie are not confronted with the facts because Jessie is not looking into the science. Jessie is not looking into what this ideology is actually founded on, is not looking into what harm it actually causes. Jessie is only interested in wanting the community to feel good without understanding what the community actually is. Jessie can as well be a tranny with actual gender dysphoria and meaning well and everything, and probably hate me for calling her a tranny because they think that is an insult when it's just a descriptor. And due to this lack of understanding of what this all is, Jessie may do all this in the best, with the best of intentions, and it seems like Jessie is a rational thinker, just unable to see these little Swiss cheese holes in the internal consistency that she's shipping around. And it's the same thing I had at the info desk that I had for years with people who are in these ideologies, whether left, whether right, whether some religious thing. It's always this same thing. Jesse says some rationally consistent things, and then some things that contradict each other, and doesn't really understand that, oh, this thing I said 5 minutes earlier completely contradicts what I'm saying right now. If you would put these two thoughts right into the same sentence, you would notice, you would rather summon up the cognitive dissonance. But because these things are 5 minutes apart, the brain doesn't notice that they are completely in contradiction of each other. I don't think Jesse means ill. I don't think Jesse is malicious. I think Jesse doesn't realize what she's actually doing.
Well, the way that she formulated her sentences, it sounded as if she had about 5 or 6 different ideas that she was trying to express when it came to addressing what Shatner actually said, and there was no singular thought pattern that went straight to the root of the question, which is how good celebrities turn transphobic. And she just focused on this word means this, and they're not as knowledgeable as I am or as others are, and therefore it could mean these other things. It's like, yes, words have different terms and meanings and tones and what have you, but you know how he was using it. You admitted to how he was using it. You know his knowledge on the topic, and now you want him to be more knowledgeable. And then you brought in Rowling because she said things you didn't like, and it's like, dude, just slow down. Focus on the issue. Rowling, as far as I know, doesn't have any problems with the trans community. She's pretty supportive of them. And she's also a feminist. That's why they call her a TERF. So it's this strange sort of, we have to attack a big name because they're not saying the words the way we want them to say the words, which is purely semantic as opposed to logical or meaningful. We understand what Rowling says. I've read what Rowling has written in regards to these issues, and I saw a few of those tweets by Shatner. I saw nothing wrong with them.
Yeah.
And I'm not because I dislike SJWs or whatever. It's just he did not say anything wrong.
And the thing is, you are just a cis white man. That you don't find anything wrong with this is just proof of your oppressive nature.
Right.
And that I, trans, see nothing wrong with that is just a proof of internalized transphobia.
Oh, God.
I'm just self-hating.
Right. I hate that everything boils down to at least with this case, with semantics. It's just, he's not saying, he doesn't have enough understanding and sensibility that I have with the meanings of the words that I use, that he's not using properly, even though I totally understand where he's coming from. It's like, listen, if you know where he's coming from and you've admitted to it, there's no need to make this video. You could have just said, yeah, he said some stuff, it's kind of silly, but it didn't bother me because I understand it. You're like, yeah, thank you. Right. And then they should have said all the other people who made stupid reactions. That would have been a good video because they're blowing up.
Just have to see on my head that the way they operate at large, not just in particular maybe, but at large, is you think what you think because of what you are, and you can't help yourself.
Which is sad.
And because of this, we are justified to see you as a demon.
Well, when I try to find the truth of something, you try to eliminate as many biases as you've got. And I said before, it's very difficult. But that's what you have to do. You have to throw down your ideologies and say, okay, let me just listen to what's going on. Let me throw some context on top of that. Let me put some more of the reality of the scenarios and why people are behaving the way they're behaving, why they're thinking this way. We might get a semblance of the truth that way. I'm not saying I'll be perfect. It'll be a heck of a lot better if I start with a political view or a feminist view or aesthetic view or whatever perspectives I'm well skilled at. So that's how I generally approach things, especially in media, because media can be draped in all sorts of different tones and flavors and colors that you weren't expecting, especially if you come from one media to another, like from cinema to books or vice versa. You gotta strip those away. You gotta say, I'm gonna throw away my writer's hat, gonna throw away my editor's cap, gonna throw away my kaleidoscope lens of postmodern whatever, and just look at the thing. Say, what am I looking at? And describe it as best I can.
For that, I don't even need to, for this first approach, I don't need to know who or what the author is. I don't need to know that. I don't need to care. I just want to see the thing.
Yeah.
And it's the same with arguments made. I don't need to know what you are or who you are. I only need to see the argument and whether it makes sense.
Yeah,
Whether
the
it
logic
holds.
has to be clear and clean and shown. That's all it takes. So anyway, semantic arguments or semantic points tend to bore me just because it's just a silly statement of terms.
Word games are valid.
And okay, let's try and finish this off. I don't want to go any further, but if you want to just hear what she has to say, we know where she's going.
No, it's probably not as long because there's probably some outro nonsense, so it's probably almost over.
Yeah.
So I think we can finish this.
Okay.
I try not to interrupt at a not so important point.
All right. Okay.
Proportional in repercussions. Shatner's words, which reach a much greater audience, have a much greater potential for harm than, say, someone who is transportive with only 100 followers who calls Shatner's transphobic or a TERF on Twitter. So they're not at all proportional. The damage is very, very different. But that trans supporter who lashes out at Shatner, and Shatner himself, may be having the same personal, emotional level response as simple human beings. So, to finish off, it's frustrating.
Still not sure about the points made.
I don't want to tell trans people to not be upset or understandably angry at Shatner's words.
I'm not.
When Shatner remains obstinately
You succeeded?
and willfully ignorant of the harm.
I think she means stupid trans people. I think that's what she's trying to say. The people she talks to, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't think she likes. She's probably because most of them don't like my type to even exist. But hey, you succeeded with your hope to that trans people are not upset at Shatner before you even started this video because I wasn't upset to begin with. Isn't that amazing?
I would love to talk to a trans person that did not like Shatner's words, like actually talk to them on Skype or whatever, and say what's wrong? What made you pissed off? Like why'd you think that?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to try and analyze them. I just want to know what the hell they're talking about. Shouldn't be that hard.
Words can cause, even when he has the opportunity himself to do better. But I also don't know if pushing back against him on Twitter will do any good, and in fact may push him to even further and greater harm, as we saw with J.K. Rowling.
Oh my God, yeah, Shatner's a monster.
And I only use Shatner as an example because there are many more celebrities and people with platforms like Shatner who are also in this cycle.
And they
I
have
guess
mixed in too.
The only thing that we can try to do is, if you do wish to engage him, try to engage him by coming from a place of hope, education, and understanding. And maybe, if we do that, we can course correct him.
I think it's from Tapestry. I don't remember the TNG episode where Picard has a second life. He gets transported to some planet through some satellite, and he learns to play the flute. Mm-hmm. Something like that.
Yeah, but even he does keep doing harm to the point where you personally don't want to deal with him anymore, then just disengage and walk away and be done. And vent your frustrations and anger
what are you
with other
doing?
people in the community.
Is this a PSA, or are you trying to tell us what the hell's wrong with Shatner?
I'm sorry I talked at the same time as you.
No, I'm just trying to, is she saying what's wrong? Like, I want to get the title answered, and she keeps saying, oh, don't engage with people like this. Like, what is wrong with you?
Oh, that is a normal thing that's normal cult behavior. I have seen this years ago already on Antifa mailing lists. When someone who's new to the thing asks a question that calls the ideology into question or the strategies used into question, which are very vile, and people newly introduced into this, neonats, are essentially prone to questioning the whole thing. And they are simply told, oh, don't question this. That is just reactionary. That would just set us back. And those questions are made by conservatives and Nazis, of course, by fascists. And we the only way to battle that is by not raising the questions, because then we would give them a platform. We would give the questions that question us a platform, and that would just weaken us.
Yeah.
So don't ask the question.
So instead, do the exact opposite. I remember getting blocked by so many celebs and writers on Twitter, and it's great because you ask them, why are you so angry at Trump? What did he do that pissed you off? And if they don't engage with you because they're so big, fine, who cares? But some of them do engage with me. And I'm like, well, listen, he didn't do anything that what you're claiming. Or why do you hate this person just because he said something crazy? Like all these silly things that you're like, oh, he's just a horrible, horrible man. It's like, I've met people who were just like Trump, and they were my mayor, they were my boss, and they say crazy shit all the time. That's part of their personality. But they never hurt anyone, aside from themselves at times, because of their ego. But I could say the same of anyone, really, at that point. It's just the way they did it was very bombastic and masculine or whatever. You're like, well, you know what? They didn't mean to hurt anyone. It's only you reacting to their weird, crazy way of expressing themselves.
Yeah, and what a cult on a cult like religion wants is to not have its members be exposed to questioning themselves and questioning their beliefs. And what Shatner is doing is he's not budging. He instead is still bringing up valid points, and that exposes the large mass of people who engage with him there, of the community, to potentially question themselves, because he might say something that might make 1 or 2 or 5 of the community think, oh, well, that makes sense actually, and then start rethinking, and then eventually maybe leaving the cult, leaving the group. And this is what they want to keep from happening, and that is why they keep telling people, don't engage with the wrong thinker, don't engage with the one asking questions. That's what they're at the core of that. In case of Jesse, I don't think Jesse's aware that is part of it. I think Jesse's just on the stage of, if it stresses you out too much, don't engage.
Oh boy. Here's Taker 610. Smut, do you identify with the nationality you were assigned at birth? If so, you're cis-national? Canada doesn't have much of an identity, honestly. We're not very warlike. We're not very aggressive financially. We don't go around trying to bias people out.
If you have maple syrup.
Yeah, that's one of our unique products in Quebec, but that's more to do with the Quebec climate and the terroir of the trees and how they grow and the style of tree. But there's like Carnival, which is this big festival where they have all these fun games about syrup and kids games and what have you. There's lots of snow.
Culture is your food and your music and your festivities, and I think poutine is a what it's called is a Canadian thing.
It's kind of gross. Yeah, I don't really eat it. It's cheese curds and fries. It's like, ugh.
It's cheap food is some of the most foundational things about your culture. Like in German, it's the Currywurst. It's a sausage with ketchup and curry. Yep. That's it. But it's an inherently German thing.
Yeah, I know. We have some. I think the ham sandwich was one of them. There's a bunch of weird things per province, but in terms of being Ontario, not really. There's so many cultures in Ontario. There's so many people. It's just it's a land of immigrants. It's a land of some people moving around the provinces. It's not. There's no discernible culture I can point to. Like we have, you know how pretty much every metropolis has Little Italy or Chinatown.
They're all fracturing into these things nowadays.
So we have like multiple Chinatowns. We have multiple Little Italies. You know, Greece, that sort of thing. So
the main culture you usually tend to keep finding in the more rural places.
Yeah, you tend to congregate where other people of the same background are. It's just common human nature. It's not a big deal. So we have excellent restaurants and really, really strange laws.
Yeah.
So It's the identity is not hard. It's not easy to point out. Say this is Canada. It's just a bunch of weird traditions. I think drinking might be a standard because our first prime minister was an alcoholic. So
I hear many are, and maybe that's something to do with the cold climate. You don't have much to do in winter.
Yeah. We have okay.
Is the same thing.
When we talk about like food and drink, like there's whiskey throughout the world. We have Canadian rye, but it's not very good. Like there are some good whiskeys in Canada, but the Canadian rye crap is like there's no good rules.
It's a type of alcohol that does the job.
It's spicy and sweet and harsh, and you're like, that's, if you water it down, it's great, but that's not why you have whiskey. You want something clean and pure and natural. So you don't get that in Canada. You get, there are other ways of making booze in Canada, but that's the only thing I could think of that's really Canadian aside from like donuts and maple syrup. It's just whiskey or rye whiskey and Carnival. Yeah, that's about all.
Yeah, 2 more minutes.
Where it can be constructive rather than destructive. If you need to be upset and angry and vent at William Shatner, I totally understand that, but do that with a friend maybe, instead of pushing him away. And then after all of that, if it's clear there is nothing we can do and he keeps doubling down and pushing further into harmful words against the trans community, then all we can try to do is hold him accountable in proportionate measure to his words' harm.
Oh, God.
Though
you will always be
is always the
out
hardest
of proportion,
because
always.
It's something society never seems to want to do. Hold people accountable
because
for
we're
the
not
harm
crazy.
their words can cause. But in the end, we all must keep pushing forward. This
is dumb. This is dumb, guys. This is a dumb video. I'm sorry.
This pisses me off so much.
She started fine. She started with giving the definition and showing examples, and then she just went into dumb. I don't know what to say. Be nice to Shatner, but if he's not nice to you, don't hold him accountable. I was like, what are you? Just stop.
And now this right the opposite direction. People should be held accountable for the mean words they say. Now that thing comes out, and I so despise that when these people say that, because these people say the most vile things all day, every day, and they're not held accountable by their own standards, by their own rules.
Yeah, it's pretty
they don't apply them because everyone else is more mature and more decent and wouldn't do these harsh things to these narcissistic children, these emotionally immature people.
It's like they have carte blanche because it's the internet to just be a bunch of dickheads to everyone online. It's like, can you like be nice and say things in a friendly manner? Is that possible?
They keep acting like children because no one has ever shown them boundaries. That's what it looks like.
Not just boundaries, but just basic decency to talk to people. Like, you can go anywhere online on social media and say a contrary opinion. It's like, I don't agree with that because of X, Y, Z. It's like, oh, you're a horrible whatever. You're just dumb. You don't understand what we just said. And you could take every single thing they said and counterpoint it and realize they're just a bunch of children. And you're arguing with kids at recess. And they're never going away. They're always at recess. They never stop. They're running around and pointing fingers and saying this person has cooties and that's that. And it's getting people to cry for no reason.
Yeah,
that's Twitter or social media in general.
So, worse than that, and I've talked about in private a long time before. In German, we don't have... The kids play the same game, but it doesn't have a name here that you call cooties in English, which I find very interesting because they come up with it themselves. And I've used this before in trying to explain how these people label everyone a Nazi. And it functions the same way as the cooties game. If you touch a thing, that now has the cooties. And if someone else then touches the thing, you get the cooties from the thing that someone else touched. The thing itself doesn't actually have anything, but it's the cooties game. And so now people have the Nazi cooties because you actually accidentally touched the thing that before in alleged Nazis touched. And it's the same thing with the transphobia stuff. It's how all this works. It's a big game of cooties.
All right, let's see if she's almost done.
Yeah.
And that we always have each other.
Yeah, where she's done. Okay. Oh my God. Let's not have a rational argument. Let's have an emotional response. Like, okay,
I
Jesse.
still don't know what the problem is. This is half an hour, and Jesse, you still have not explained to me what the problem is with William Shatner. What is the thing that he said that is bad? I still don't know.
I'm just playing around with the timeline. I don't know what happened here. It's like, what's
Normomorphic. But
Anyway, that was Jesse Jenner, guys. We got through it. We learned absolutely nothing. That was fantastic. Don't talk to him, but if you do talk to him, be nice. And if he's not nice to you, don't talk. It's like, thanks, Jesse. We know how to do the Twitter thing.
For that, really. See, and these are the people who speak for my kind. This of course, no one wants to engage. And
so I finished my. I guess I could try my bingo card.
I'm sorry they have free reign because we have bigger problems. We have actual problems. But these people, the problems these people make up about us in our name are not the problems we actually have. None of what these people are talking about are our problems. Pronouns aren't a problem. This cisgender bullshit, that's not a problem. Oppression, it's not a problem. Medical hurdles,
okay.
The system can be revamped a little, but it's not a problem.
So this was a pretty bad, boring bingo card. I didn't know. Obviously, she was throwing shade at Shatner, but I mean, it was just sort of referencing him, but saying he's good, but he's not good. He's bad, but he's not bad. It's all this nonsense language bullshit. Essentially, it came down to the feminist socialist viewpoints. So it translates to me as capitalism is bad. There were a few isms and phobias and ists on here, but it all boiled down to the straight white, literally cis white male bad. So, good Lord, Jesse, get a goddamn point before you start a video next time.
Yeah, write a script.
Oh, she does. There's no way she just did that off the cuff. I don't think anyone had that. She had so many points in her, like not points, but ideas running around in her head. She must have written them down.
I have lots of crap in my head. you hear me talking for hours.
So I was going to say rambles off topic, although she was still technically on the topic, but it was just so all over the place. And I don't know. It wasn't quite rambling.
No, I think it's just that Jesse was mainly rambling on because there wasn't actually much to say. That's why she went to a tangent.
Yeah. If she just focused on the Twitter, and she did for the first part, she talked about it for a bit. If she just focused on that, had some statements, why this is good or bad, and finished it after 12 minutes, like, yeah, that was good. Simple. But no, rambled on. So, sorry we had to sit through that, but I really wanted to get someone's educated and experienced view on things. And that's our last Jesse Jenner video, unless you guys got a really good one for us to cover that doesn't bore the shit out of me.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I don't know if she's going to have any. We tried to do her media ones. They were no good.
Yeah, and in case, if you want to bear with me again, if you have these trans bullshit topics coming up, just ask.
You can think of the only time.
All right. Well,
that
was good for me. Thank you guys for tuning in. That was over 3 hours. Wow. I thought it was going to be
really
only 2 hours, but okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. No, thanks guys for the recommendation. I'm glad we cleaned that one off our docket because we got other opportunities to put better stuff on there. And with that note, please add to the suggestions channel. I always go through it once a week and add to the voting. Please keep voting so we know what we're doing tomorrow or the day after. And hopefully it'll be fun, different. Let's not talk about, feminism and socialism and SJWisms and all that crap. Let's just change it up, Let's not go with that route tomorrow or the day after, please.
Yeah. Don't eat the same shit every day.
Yeah, just
eat different.
Different crazy is good, not the same crazy. That's how I like it. Anyway, thank you guys. We'll talk to you real soon.